But the game we're looking at here in lower round 4 is Winthrop versus Baker College, and we've seen both of these teams, you and I, Jackson. Baker College against Cumberland, and Winthrop just yesterday in their upset loss of all things to Harrisburg.
Yeah, this is going to be tough, especially for Winthrop right now. Haven't been really playing as well as they normally do, right, Scott? They seem to have struggled yesterday, getting upset by Harrisburg. Hopefully, the rest that they had overnight will be able to get them back into the swing of things. And as for Baker, they took a pretty close loss to Cumberland University just about last week. But since then, they've been running through the losers bracket. So they got some momentum on their side, and that might just help them out in today's matchup. And maybe they'll be able to upset Winthrop the same way that Harrisburg did.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much so a possibility. We saw that Winthrop can, in fact, bleed as the #1 seed going into the college championship. So seeing them fall apart, seeing them lose in a 2-0 fashion can, spell ultimately maybe their demise continuing on to this. They have to play perfect from this point onwards, and they proved that they were not perfect just yesterday. And out of all things, we saw a couple of weak maps, and will likely lead us to the question of what map are we heading to in this series? What 3 maps do we have the possibility to see? It was splitting a scent fan right off the rip, leading us into Pearl for our first map. We saw this for Baker previously, and this was a poor map we had expected for Cumberland. They still managed to come out on top. Then you have Haven to follow through, this one being a solid pick. Baker going for this one instead, and Winthrop, who we didn't see any kind of inkling they wanted to play Pearl yesterday throughout their map ban selection. Seeing them pick that one first is fairly shocking, but with Fractured Icebox being banned, which is kind of anticipated, it's Lotus for that decider where Winthrop struggled a whole heck of a lot yesterday against Harrisburg. And while it was closer than map 1 on Haven, which is the second map here for this series, it still was not the best showcase for them.
Yeah, and I think now that we've seen the map pool, this does feel a bit more favored towards Winthrop, despite them having struggled on these maps just yesterday. I really think that Moves as a player has to come back to their normal form. They are usually a site anchor, and yesterday just seemed like an off day for them, to be honest. So hopefully they're able to turn that around. As we see now, the Agent Select being locked in. Moves back on that Vice pick, which they are very comfortable on, even though they were forced to play Cypher yesterday. I think we're going to see a different Winthrop team today, Scott.
Yeah, likely will be Astra as well for Ollie to close out for this Winthrop side. The Vice Jet, Astra, Teo, and Fade is their typical go-to selection. Turn that over to Baker College. There's a little bit less they have to work with in terms of consistency, but I'm not surprised to see a KJ get locked through. Very valuable for the lockdown. Astra is just the #1 controller for this map. Very rare to see anything otherwise. It's really the duelists that I think are the innovative choice for this map, because you can play the Yoru, who's so good at the smoke and dagger style, separating sightlines, forcing players to look, TPing, being a constant threat. But you can also have other variability for things like a Neon, or even things like a standard Jet, which Infiltrator is so consistent on. But we do see that it does get locked in for the Yoru. For Demon, we saw this against Cumberland, and we also saw Demon play the Yoru the entire series. They were a Yoru one trick, which Cumberland had no problem really dismantling. So if Winthrop have done any VOD review, prep for this whatsoever, which again, I'd expect they would after the loss yesterday. Really want to make sure that they don't make any mistakes continuing on in the lower side. They will likely know the Agent Select and really what Baker College are going to be bringing to the table and prepare accordingly. And we did see quite a lot of success from ladder moves across both of the maps against Cumberland, and it does bring up that question of how are these Sentinels going to play against each other when we know that when Moves gets targeted like they did on Haven on map 1 yesterday, they start to struggle, and the gaps, glaring weaknesses just plague this Winthrop side and lead them to a devastating loss.
We've seen what Demon is able to do on that Yoru 2 last week as we saw them play against Cumberland. They are a 1v1 Demon, and they are really able to get into the backline. So Moves is going to have to be on the lookout for that. As we see on this first pistol round, we see Baker looking to head towards mid, but Moves immediately gets the first blood of the entire match, as Nasi there to support as well. So if Moves finding themselves yet another one onto Demon, and that's a quick dismantling of that mid hit.
Yeah, great use of corners and trying to play against each other. Nami will get the only frag for the side of Baker College here, but past that, not a major round for them, and Winthrop will come away with the first pistol round win and start to maybe capitulate some rounds in their favor. Expect the 2-1 start. We did see that break a single time just yesterday in that second series with Winthrop. but they did still feel like the standard mold of Valorant continued onwards. And for a map like this, where we've seen the poking and prodding from Baker College, we've seen them like to lag behind, we've seen them like to default a lot consistently, and they like to be that smoke and dagger style that comes with a Yoru in your back pockets. That's going to have to be something Winthrop keep an eye out for, because you never know what they're going to bring to the table as Baker College do decide to default in to a Frenzy, a Ghost, and the rest having classics. Save as you'd expect for a round 2. Don't try to test your luck, and they'll pop flash now out here towards Link in hopes to catch maybe a player or two off guard, but instead it's Demon paying the ultimate price as Moobs gets a ghost shot to their head.
Here.
Yeah, it looks like Baker really does like working mid a lot during their pistol rounds here, but Moves has had it on lockdown, having themselves a game right now with 3 kills already. Might have been a bit overzealous by Demon to try to teleport into that without a flash, as you see here. Infiltrator on the arts finds a pick with that outlaw, and the spike is also down. However, the right click's coming through for Baker to even up the numbers here.
That went through the door. I'm just amazed. But now it's only ladder moves, and their life is taken out just as quickly as the rest were on that attempt through door. And Winthrop will get that 2-0 start. And they didn't actually go too heavy-handed of a commitment for this round, likely keying into the fact they have a VOD precedence for Baker College against Cumberland, and they know that Cumberland is no laughing matter whatsoever when it comes to this map, even though it is arguably their weakest map. That has been VODable for them, because they've had to play it a few times because teams really like to play it against them. They still did not want to second guess themselves, so they went for a standard Ghost alongside Baker College, arguably an even chance in round 2. They still come out on top in a very good fashion, and they can start to buy up weapons that they would like to bring for round 3. And in this case, the big one to look here is the Outlaw in Flair's hand, and then the Vandal in Nasi's hand. And Nasi has been clinical in some of these big important rounds for Winthrop, even though they didn't they didn't win either of the 2 maps on Haven nor on Lotus just yesterday. It did feel like Nasi was in control for a big part of it. An Infiltrator, so good with that Sheriff, able to dice up ladder moves, and now stuck, trapped in attacker spawn, hoping to isolate one, and there's Nami. One more chance. Can you get there if you're Rice Ball? And no, you can't, and it's a frag that will go unpunished for the refrag.
That is a huge pick coming out from Infiltrator. They find 3 before Demon is finally able to take them out, and that's just a lapse in MAC coverage, I feel, for the side of Baker. How do you let a Jet just slow walk all the way up A main without any early information, Scott?
It just feels like they're not reading into positionally how they were against Cumberland. Baker College were so good about playing map control, so good about spreading themselves, not necessarily thin, but laying a wide net to ensnare that Cumberland roster, and yet Winthrop wrapped themselves completely through. The net was a little bit too wide, the gaps too big, and they snuck through with Infiltrator doing what their name implies here. But Demon has now made this round still recoverable for them. Rifles are easily collectible if you're the last 2 here of Moobs and or Ollie. They have their own already. Moves able to dice up Demon. No more chances for them. Now Whirlpool tries to pull in Rice Ballin as Moves misses that shot, and maybe Rice Ballin gets caught off in the play in through Garden, but I don't think they'll know. You gotta hit your shots if you're Ollie. Ghost out. There it is, finally. A 3-0 start for Winthrop. We do, in fact, break the stereotypical mold of a 2-1 split.
Huge bonus coming out from the side of Winthrop. All off the back of Infiltrator really finding the 3 picks that they needed. Demon tried to do their best to even up the numbers, but in the end, it was just too much to handle. You're giving the opponents the rifles that they need to try and make this comeback, and this is a big round for Winthrop to win because, I mean, 1, you break the eco, but 2, Pearl is such a difficult map to get a foothold of, especially on the attack. Once you've lost that eco advantage, it just takes so much more to climb up, and right now it doesn't feel as if Baker have a good idea of how they want to attack. It's been 3 rounds that they've tried to take space on mid, and it's backfired on them. So we'll see now if they have any more luck trying to push A main together as a unit, or half of it.
Down goes one more. Rice Ballin gets a nice share shot, though, off towards Flair, and will keep the Teo out of the equation. Which means those salvos will not be something there for a possible post-plant retake. If you even see Baker capable of getting on towards site, they'll lose out on ladder moves, which means no Sentinel and a lot more difficulties in their own post-plant. You can counter that by getting onto site and shutting down Infiltrator, but you're trying to do that off from Art, but it's going to fail. Nasi with a great cover towards Infiltrator's flank on that link side out of Art, and it's just Nami now at a 1v4. While they do take out Infiltrator with the operator in their hand, all you're really doing is dropping the Vandal that was in Nasi's to be traded the other way, so they can keep that boomstick in the right player's repertoire. 4-0 now for Winthrop, but still plenty fine for Baker College. It's just about collecting themselves from this point onwards.
Yeah, and I think that the problem here is they're trying to do a split offense, but the stack where the spike is, they're just dying a little bit too early. You got to stay alive and draw enough attention to let your flankers really slowly carve out the map of Furrow, because if you're trying to play a slow lurky style, you cannot lose bodies within the first 5 seconds. As we see here, Infiltrator is going to post up on mid doors with that operator once again. If they get that first pick onto Asha, it's going to be a tough round for Baker to come through.
Ooh, Rice Ballin already gotten past Pillar and is looking to control the Radiant Ice Stack default plant. The great thing about a Vice is you can place down those thorns and lock down so many of the quick rush players that get onto the B site. Though the Euro just counter that with a TP. Infiltrator does everything themselves. Plays in through doors, gets 2 kills before falling. That weapon should be easily collectible, but you're making just absolute headway on the B site, using Rice Ballin's utility to get one more and tie up the man count now for a 3-on-3 as Demon gifted those 3 kills in round 2, I should say. Now as he used the Dimensional Drift and he's using it as a VTOL. Trying to body block for the Hunter's Fury, but it's not going to happen. And they pulled out the utility and it should have been a free kill. But unfortunately, neither side gets the better end until Demon gets a second chance opportunity now against Flare. Moves 11 HP, a single shock dart would kill. And it doesn't go to the right spot, but Rice Ballin still swings right with that Vandal. And it's just Nasi trying to hide away. Knows Demon is there, but 21 HP is not nearly enough to deal with a player who knows exactly where you lie. And it's the first round win for this Baker College side.
Beautifully done two-man play there from Rice Ballin and Demon, using both ultimates to try and get the picks that they needed. It was enough to set up Demon in a position in the backline to get those picks, but they left ladder moves all by themselves. So 1v1 moves, and moves has been getting a hot start right now. They get the spike down, and then in the end, it was just a lapse of coverage of angles from Demon that allowed Rice Ballin to get picked off. They get their first round win, but it was way too expensive. As you see now, they have a bit of a half buy coming out with just a Bulldog and a Guardian. Infiltrator will find the first pick, but Fate to trade out immediately.
It's also kind of the same story right now for Winthrop. If they lose out on this, they won't be in the best of straights, but doesn't mean that they can make big sacrifices like that. Infiltrator goes for the Blade Storm, just saying, I won't buy the Operator this time around. While there is some congestion to the ult orb on top of Belong, there's not much you can really do with that Cosmic Divide. Baker using this as a kind of a cloak and dagger, fake and bait for the B site, and it's moved a lot of the Winthrop defense over there as Flare's gonna have to make the big rotate to join in alongside Ollie, who's trying to one-way themselves here towards back of dugout and play just below in Cubby, as the stall is actually darked well with just a single player. Baker haven't been able to gain access towards that site, but Rice Ballin's all the way back inside Hall on this B site and can walk away with maybe a kill if a player decides to quickly step into this objective without checking for sure if anyone's out towards Hall. There's the fade though. That's the perfect intel. Rice Ballin is 100% known. Marked as well. Prowler would be a great way to continue to move them out. The Fate has a lockdown from Nasi up above. Down with their head, hoping for more as the plant goes down in bronze. And it's a post-plant scenario with, once again, Winthrop in a man disadvantage and no ultimates of which to work with. Ollie just needs one. Maybe you use the Cosmic Divide here, but you're asking a whole lot without having everything in front of you. What a flick up by Rice Ballin, getting 2, and it's Winthrop at their wits' end again. 2 in a row now for Baker College.
What a huge move by Rice Ballin there. I mean, the hero of the round, lurking over on that B, hearing all of the rotations, and then not overextending on that lurk. Yes, they get spotted out by the Hunt, but the main thing in that situation was to just stay alive until the plant comes down. Because they had that, they had the recon dart coming back on cooldown, and then hits these 2 nasty running flicks, headshots. Insane, Scott.
It's consistency, right? If you're able to pull out plays like that, like we expect from Nasi, and I kind of joked about it earlier, even though they lost the series yesterday, it still felt like Nasi was pulling out ridiculous 2v1s, 3v1s, same thing across for Jeffies. It just felt like that's what we were seeing from our initiators, and we're also seeing it now from Iceball, which is something that is absolutely necessary. It's a 1-for-1 trade, though, on the rush in here towards B sites. You do lose out on moves that Vice, but you do take down Nami for the Astra, your controller, and a big primary importance for this Baker side when it comes to controlling the sightlines of availability for the retake here for Winthrop. Sheriff only in hand for Flare. They were trying to save some credits. Infiltrator gets dusted by Fate, and the Owl drone over the top does spot Flare once again, and Ali wants to try to close this gap as safe as possible. Nasi crossfire into Riceball from upper heaven. Fate down on site, now marked by the Hunt. Prowler to try to follow suit towards outer hall. You gotta clear out this default plant, and Flare's there. No, it's Fate. They get 2. 3 to their name. Make it 4. Why don't you? Baker College have found themselves an initiator out of Fate.
Huge round. I mean, early picks coming from Demon and Infiltrator, but not all trades are equal, Scott. Yes, you lose the Asha, and that's a huge player to lose. No smokes on that post plan, but also what happens was when Moobs goes down, that's a free site. They don't have to worry about anything. They're able to just rush and take all of the space that they have, because I think at this point, Baker College understands that Moobs is a solo site anchor. If you can pick him off early, you're going to have so much space, because Winthrop like to stack the other side of the map. This time now, Winthrop is going to switch it up a little bit, putting Moobs back in that center so that they're able to rotate and help and not be stuck on an island by themselves. Huge adjustment from yesterday's game, Scott.
And whether that adjustment will work out for them, time will tell. But you see Baker finally falling into their default, what we anticipated to see, what they did a lot against Cumberland. Sometimes they did it hot and heavy, they'd go in fast. Sometimes they'd kind of stall. They'd wait things out. They'd lay out the net, like I joked about previously, and we saw Infiltrator kind of sneak through the gaps of that net. They're doing so here once again, poking and waiting for this Winthrop roster to test the limits, see where the breaking point is, and, well, Moobs failed to find it. The reproach out of art leads to a free frag for Baker College, and while you could maybe argue, hey, we get a little bit of information, that Sentry Drone that goes in there afterwards and clears out all of this middle courtyard finds nothing, which screams to Ali, I'm likely about to be absolutely rushed upon from this B site, B long rush, and you have to use an Armageddon, you have to use everything here if you're Winthrop to try to stall to get your team in for this retake.
30 seconds left.
Forced to fall back now and play this post plant as a retake. Flare will find a pick with the missiles, but Demon and Nami to take 2 down as well. Nami going crazy so far, and now it's all left to Nasi in this 1v4, unable to find anything. And that's a second round, Scott. When moves go down first, it becomes infinitely easier for Baker to take the space that they need.
I just feel like Winthrop, there's 2 glaring issues in my eyes right now for this. And somebody can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I very well may be. I'm not omnipotent. I do have a top-down view, but it's nothing too crazy. Winthrop right now are just getting outgunned, and they're too slow on all of their utility uses, right? They just don't have the right coordination. The salvo's in for the gravity well alongside for the kill, for you get your first frag, and that's fine for the retake. But all of the utility that should have gone in the moment to get that, the salvo should have gone down already. All of that should have been there to stall. The Armageddon had too much of a gap between that and the salvos, and so it still gave Baker College a free chance for the plant, which didn't give your team the right timing to get back into that site. And then you're already just missing too many gunfights. These players aren't consistently hitting shots with rifles in their hands, and we even saw that in the first 4 rounds, even when Winthrop was winning it. We didn't see them be super consistent, even with that gun advantage on taking down Baker. And Baker, now with rifles in their hands, are absolutely picking apart this Winthrop defense, and it's just a matter of being the better gunners. Get an operator back in Infiltrator's hands, for goodness sake. That's just what I'm screaming, to get these first free kills, because if you don't, Baker College are going to continue to get away with these freebies, like this round's going to feel like, as it's an eco round for Winthrop, but also a first blood out of the outlaw of all things in Demon's hands.
I think if you're Vice, you got to play that wall, right? There's no reason for you to be peeking unless your wall goes off. And so it's unfortunate to get ticked off every time. This time, luckily, Winthrop have the read on where the bomb would be rotated. As you see, the stack is now pushing towards A for the execute, but the defense is already there. Missiles are going to come out to try and delay any pushes here. And they are running out of time. Only 20 seconds left. Don't really have enough time to rotate. Have to commit into this. A flash is going to come out. Demon's going to find one pick and Fate to cover as well. But the trades are relatively even as Nasi is a Sheriff Demon right now. But 2 is all they'll be able to get as there's just too much firepower coming out from the side of Baker. And they get the go-ahead round after winning 5 in a row.
Losers bonus is maxed out, folks. Winthrop are looking at just 3 left in the half, and they should be able to buy for each and every one of them, but we've seen them struggle even with proper buys. And here we go. Infiltrator back with an operator. Purchased, I believe, actually by Moobs or Nasi, who still had plenty of creds at that point, saving up in the prior round. Baker College have ultimates. 3 still in their back pocket. 3 very important ones. The VTOL and Hunter's Fury combo we're likely to see. Whether or not that be this round or the next may not matter, but you'll see both. Here it is popped here. But the Dimensional Drift not actually being used in normal fashion to get closer to site, but actually more so direct out through arts and back now into A main so they can join the rest of the team to fight on site. And nothing is connected for either side. Infiltrator still with the operator was hoping that they could get a freebie, but laying in with those Astra bubbles, the clouds and the smokes completely separates those sight lines, does stall out Baker, and you do get a lot of value for the ultimate shutdown. All 3 that were available for Baker off the board, but so is Ollie now.
There's so much space that Baker is able to take off the dimension where if they put ladder moves deep into sewer there to try and cut off any rotations. The Cosmic Divide is going to come through now, and Moobs really has their work cut out for them as they are going to have to try and solo hold this. His team is slowly rotating over, but the call has already been made by ladder moves. Look at their positioning deep into Flowers. Should be able to get a pick here, but Flair able to spot them out. Nasi, though, finding another lurk kill. So they don't have the information that the spike is necessarily going towards to A, but based on deduction, you would think if they haven't hit B now, they're going to probably hit A as the rotate from the defense is coming now.
I feel that hot to confirm that nobody is in fact coming through B launch. Remainder in for side. It never gets cleared, and so you're able to buy a lot of time. This is a dugout plant of all things. I guess you are pretty stressed for time if you're Fate. Would you be more concerned about that wall bang there? Nasi just outside of Cubby. While Fate is on site and able to deal with moves, it's just a player dominance effect from Winthrop as they slowly incise upon the encroached territory here. Nami down with 1, hoping for more, able to get in, and there's Infiltrator, the last one standing with the operator, and out goes the boomstick. Down goes that last remaining Baker College side. It's Winthrop, who started out 4-0 and gave up 5 in a row for Baker College, are now back into a tied series, 5-on-5. And that loser's bonus will unfortunately not be there any further, and they will be pretty strapped for cash in this next round, despite still having the operator and Infiltrator's hands. This just was a whole lot needed in this round to win it, and that's even counting that they shut down 3 ultimates from Baker College in the initial rush over towards the A side, Jackson.
Yeah, and I'm going to point it out. 3 rounds ago, Moobs died first and continued to do so for the next 2 rounds, and they lost all of those rounds back to back to back. This time, Moobs stays alive, and it's his utility that really spots out the lurk from Rice Balling, where they were able to catch that kill. And this is so important for Moobs to really stay alive. Otherwise, there's no point of picking Vise. Your utility is useless when you're dead. As Infiltrator finds that first pick onto Demon.
It already feels like the Vice is difficult to make use of, knowing they have a Yoru. So much of that can just be instantly obliterated by a decoy walkthrough and falling for its ploy. This is why you needed something like Infiltrator to play in alongside it, right? To have sightlines to get these free first bloods. And sometimes it's not just 1, sometimes it's 2, and like we're seeing now in round 11, it can sometimes be 3 of all things. Infiltrator knocking Fate, Rice Ballin, and Demon, humbling them in this 11th round, and now placing Nami and ladder moves into a very uncomfortable position as Moves is alone off towards Hall. At least they thought they were, but Nami was sneaking up upon them and will get this frag to maybe leave it as an option here for a B-side plant. But this is a ploy, and you know it because you got Spike under your loving arms if you're Winthrop, because Infiltrator did the dirty work early, getting that 3K.
Yeah, and this is going to have to be a save from ladder moves here. You still have full shields, and you have all of your utility. There isn't really a point in investing any sort of credits here. They do, but all the rounds have been so close, Scott. I feel like they can't really have that much. They might still have to support by on one of their players.
I think that won't even matter. I think you'll get 2,000 credits for the end of loss here. That would put even ladder moves basically at cap. I think that they'll be Yeah, 7,500 for ladder moves. They'll be plenty fine for this. The thing that they wanted to do here, Jackson, was because they know how strapped for cash Winthrop have been. Losing out of the loser's bonus, they were already coming into this one where it would be a little bit pressed on some players to have everything. And you wanted to make sure if you're going to drop players, you want to drop 2 to 3, so then they're then struggling in this 12th round. Baker getting the juicy meat round wins, right? The middle 5 in a row is where the big difference is made between them and Winthrop. Winthrop got the first 4, but you didn't have rifles to start. You didn't get to carry over rifles to start, and even then you saved in round 2 as well to match Baker's stats. So credits were always going to be an issue for those. You won the juicy rounds, you won the meat, and you had to take a bite out of as much of eco as possible for Winthrop, but unfortunately you can't do it. Great salvo usage, and while Flair has struggled in this half overall for Winthrop, which is kind of expected when you have a Vice and a Teo together, it's not that the Vice of moves is going crazy, which you kind of expect in that tandem duo. In fact, they're shutting down moves very well. That's been a talking point we've kind of harped on it, much to probably Moob's chagrin. It's been Infiltrator and Nasi making that headway. 15 and 8 for Infiltrator. 3 obviously in that last round out of the Operator. And most of these kills having felt like they've come from Operator or falling into the net of Baker College and somehow still scraping away 2 to 3 kills on these big impact rounds past. Then sometimes they're real silent going down first alongside moves. You have to be a little bit more hit or miss, or let's should say less hit or miss and more hit as often as possible, as this one looks like it's a miss because Infiltrator gets absolutely torn asunder by ladder moves as Vandal.
Huge pick, punishing Infiltrator, knowing that they will want to peek early with that op, because that's where you're going to find the most success, is honestly to get aggressive. But sometimes you just have to switch the pacing up. Meanwhile, Moves able to get a ton of space here, but they're going to run into 3. They will find 1, but that's it. Immediately traded out. So once again, they'll know that the B site is open. However, Baker College kind of cooking a little bit here, not going to rotate towards B just yet. Trying to see if they can bait out any other lurkers. And I think eventually they're going to just end up hitting A here, Scott.
I love the way that Baker College play after the first bloods. They get it, and they've had it so consistently, whether it be against Moobs or Infiltrator, right? And then they play 2 for 1s. 2 for 1, 2 for 1, 2 for 1. You split up 4 players. If 5 are still alive, even better, you play 3-1-1, and you have your 2 floating players watching to make sure nobody's playing for map control for Winthrop, and the rest can just single-handedly try to take over a site and ensuring that they both have a crossfire from one angle. The only problem then is you're expecting possibly a flash or anything of the sort to close off sight lanes, and they don't have that. They have Nasi, which is a little bit less coherent of a flash in comparison to something like a Sky or a Breach even, but still can be very good about getting information alongside the potential as an initiator. You do know where Demon is. That's dealt with by Flare, getting themselves an ice frag, hoping for more. Rice falling behind this smoke placed by an Astra. Flare will tap that spike in hopes to bait out a rush. As Rice Ballin's holding close to screen, you have some visual there if you're Nazi, but there's no way to get into it because all of your pillar players are just locking things down. It's 3 for Rice Ballin and a 6-6 split at halftime on Pearl.
Yeah, well done coming from the side of Baker. I mean, Winthrop didn't really have much choice there besides trying to push into the post plant because there's just so much utility coming from the side of Baker's comp. The shock darts, you got the missiles, and I believe they still had Astropulse. So it's a lot to deal with without aggressing, and I think they made the right call. It was just the positioning from Baker was just way too strong. And so we come to a 6-6 half. This is a map that both teams are good at. Winthrop historically seems to have done a lot better than Baker have, but from what I've seen from this first half, I think Baker have a really good chance of holding this. Still, taking only 6 rounds on attack might be a little concerning for me.
With a ghost. Wow, getting Infiltrator, a very important player to knock off this Winthrop offense. Even in something as simple as a pistol round, Baker College aren't just satisfied with the 1. They'll go above and beyond, 2 more on top of that tally, but Winthrop just play into it. It's a 1v1, and Ollie has no HP. A Sheriff shot anywhere would get the job done. Look what Demon has in their hands, and the 2 players they'd already taken down off the board just before. It's a 3K in round 13, the first of our second half for Demon. And we saw just how good they were with the dimensional drift, getting information, using that to prowl about and be a constant threat, as well as to usurp players for merely important spots and body block with the Hunter's Fury combo from Rice Ballin. Think about how that'll play on defense as well, when you really are worried about how Winthrop are going to play and how many players they're going to send out into a site, as we see Baker now do something Winthrop did not do in that first half after a pistol round win. They are forcing up for the bonus in round 2, round 14, I should specify, of the second half. And it will be nothing in the back pocket here for Winthrop bar two Sheriffs and Infiltrator in Move's hands.
Yeah, it looks like mid has been the section of choice for both teams during pistols. As we see now, so much defense being utilized here on that mid area. Nami will find the pick onto Infiltrator, and this will allow them to swarm into sight. Demon gets one as well. But now this is a fight between Moves and Fate. But Fate eventually wins out, and this is going to be a flawless round coming out from the side of Baker.
This is exactly what you'd like to see from their own map pick, getting a little bit ahead just into the start of the second half and not losing a single one of those weapons, and doing so on their defense in spectacular fashion, meaning the Guardian can hold a whole lot further back of your Nami, likely off towards A, close to dugout in that backside cubby. Both Bulldogs can be closer off towards B for a lot of players and a lot of teams. That's what they like to do. But Demon has a Vandal, which means they can hold down that longer range of sight towards B and have the potential to TB back, which means they can prowl down B long and also get back safely towards defender spawn to rotate off towards A. The only question is, where will you place Rice Ballin? And the likely choice will be close by on that B long to try to facilitate something in assistance with Demon on the Yoru. The TP will likely be taken here shortly as its timer will run out, and it does look to be like a side maybe primed for a initial hold off towards A, as they've moved 2 players into this foothold inside of A main just behind that crate. But the team hasn't made a full decision yet. But if they do, it'll likely be all 5 ready to trounce through to the A main site if they don't put anyone through Art. Because look, Ladder Moves has just refused to move from this position until, wow, they didn't even take TP. Demon stayed and shut down Nasi's little bit of a poke and prod towards B.
Yeah, a lot of this here was thanks to Demon being able to take so much space. They got all that information that they needed, knowing that Baker had not yet rotated. Now the execute is going to come over on the A side, but it's too late. The defense is already set up there, so it's just Moves left in this 1v3. Has a Vandal in hand, but it's just so much to ask of Moves right now. The spike not in their control, and I think the save is the correct call here, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, if you're buying out in round 15 like you should, and losing first blood, finding a loss in the second, getting a single, and this losing out on this back and forth battle, especially not finding any headway onto the A side. You didn't even burn a lot of Baker utility leading up to it. What's the point of the stall, Winthrop, if you're not going to gain anything out of waiting for it? Maybe hoping that Baker College defaults and splits their 2 sites, a bait and queue, a bait and switch that they'll split up. They don't ever have to do that. They have a Yoru. They can TP just as back just as quickly. It just feels like Winthrop would have been better suited rushing out the first 15 seconds to the A side instead of waiting a minute and a half to do it, because the difference was not there, because they didn't do anything in those 90 seconds of time that was expunged from their bank. Father Time takes no prisoners. Just executes immediately, and Winthrop fell victim to not just Father Time, but the Baker College players on A site that tore them apart.
So far, this second half has just started mirror of the first half. We see the team that wins pistols also winning out the bonus. Fate, however, will find the pick onto Infiltrator off of that pop flash. And again, this is an eco round, so Fate's gonna go and try to pad their stats, finding 3 kills there. And here we have the spike moving towards that B site, and Ali, they should be able to get the plant down here, but it is going to be a 2v5 on this post plant with them having the superior weaponry that they need.
What can you possibly do if you're on the side of Winthrop? Try to squeak away 1 or 2 kills, but Ali is only able to do the 1. Down with Demon, but the rest of Baker College has risen to the occasion. It's double digits acquired early, round 17 for them. And Winthrop has been in this scenario before, and if we recall back to yesterday on Haven, they were incapable of stopping the Harrisburg Storm from raining on their parade. I guess that's what storm clouds tend to do best, right? But they got to double digits, and they were not gatekept there at all. And Haven hit it very quickly on map 1. And at this rate, Winthrop will have to worry about that just the same. It'll be a timeout for them to maybe try to talk things through, break down what has gone so tragically wrong in these large sprees, these big differences. I mean, just look. We only see 2-round wins in the entirety of our scoreboard bar right there. The other 4 were the first 4 of this map. Since then, they've given up now 2 separate 5-in-a-row returns and surges by Baker College.
Yeah, this is definitely a much-needed time out here as they have to get this win. This is the exact round earlier that Baker was able to convert and then snowball another 5 rounds of their own. So I would love to see the same thing happen coming out of Winthrop. The only difference is the offense just seems a little lost. I don't think they really have much of a game plan here besides trying to sniff out where the defense is not even using utility to do so, but placing bodies to try and get this information. That's not what you want on a map like Pearl. You have to try and pull rotations as the offense and utilize how big this map is to your advantage.
Duelists and initiators tend to eat up good on this map, and we see that for both sides. Fate and Demon tied up at the top of the tally for Baker College. Infiltrator and Nasi doing the exact same thing, but you take the difference between these sides and your utility initiators, that being Rice Ballin for intel, as well as to clear out some corners with shock darts, and then Flare for the side of Winthrop, using the salvos to try to clear players out and try to buy time, as well as remove them to spots your team are willing to fight them within. The difference is massive. Baker College are the team that are really, I wouldn't say suffering from success, but that may be the best way to say it. It's a big enough difference to give them a bit of an edge, and that being 4 rounds to this point. And now first blood once again in round 17, down with Ali. And Winthrop have no more smokes, bar a cloudburst out of Infiltrator, but that thing dissipates so darn fast. It's really just a great way to cover you as you get behind actual architecture and hide behind a wall.
Look at the positioning now coming out from Baker. All basically playing in their own spawn, so aware of any potential lurks. And this is the difference that we're seeing on these defensive sides. As Winthrop was always pushing forward, Baker more than happy to pull back and wait for any initiation, use the time in their favor. As you see now, 20 seconds left, the spike finally goes down, but there's only 3 members on the side of Winthrop as they're gonna get taken down effortlessly by Baker. We now have Nasi left by themselves. They're able to find one, but it's not enough. That's 11 on the board for Baker.
Look at the way that Baker College retake that site. They're treating it a lot like Haven on the A site. Just let them have it. Let them eat cake. The problem is we poisoned it. The cake was never real. The cake is a lie. The A site was ours the entire time. And I think that's the big difference that you have for flash utility in comparison between Winthrop and this Baker College side. You're already countered by Vice not being as strong against a Yoru duelist pick, right? And they obviously felt that problem in the first half by moves struggling and being really targeted. Turn that around the other way, you don't really have a great flash. It's a hunt, which is good, but that can be fairly easily cleared by not even moving the crosshair too far away from it, and they're not flashed out with their retinas being boiled by multiple players. It's such a easy thing for Baker College to avoid. Turn that around, and Fate on the KO, the major change they've hit KO, makes that flash so simple for so many players. Rice Ballin with an Odin in hand, dices up Infiltrator, and Nasi holds it down, but will fall to a toss out from Flare. I believe it's actually the Armageddon of all things that they decided to use in the round. But that all aside, does not matter. You still have to try to survive the actual push through to the site, and you are not being capable of doing so, as it's a 2-on-3, and the dimensional drift from Demon tells you exactly where everyone is, and they now have your flank completely locked in. Where's the aim, Demon? Ollie now has 2, and that could have been the perfect chance for this Baker College side to get to match point on their map pick. But now Ollie has a chance to be a hero!
Wow.
But a hero you aren't. Fate rises once again, and it's 12 for Baker College.
And that 0 point honestly wins the round there for Fate, knowing that Ali is likely pulling back to try and play for the gravity well. But he taps this, he throws out the 0 point and taps the spike. The 0 point does not allow Ali to utilize their gravity well, and so they have to recheck the angle with their body, and lo and behold, Fate is just holding the angle for an easy headshot. Well done coming out from the side of Fate there.
Love Rice Ballin as well, just committing to the hold with the Odin and spraying. Even though the Armageddon is going down, all hell is letting loose around you, right? But you stay on lock, you do your job, and you make sure it gets done, which again is what you need to see. How many NFL players in the draft these last weeks got called up by their new coaches saying, I will die for this team, I will do what I have to do for this team, blood, sweat, and tears. We see the commitment right now from Riceball in that round, and we see Baker College just wanting it more. And that has to continue, and Winthrop have to start doing that themselves as they move on over towards map 2 at this rate, because it was a man advantage for Winthrop, but now Baker College have gotten themselves a player advantage right back, 2 in a row for them. Rose Garden is a maybe great way for moves to slow and stall Baker College's eventual retake in towards this A site. 1-for-1 trade. Ladder Moves trying there with a classic, but Moves goes above and beyond. 3K to their tally, and Nami has a Cosmic Divide. Could be very interesting to try to pop this here. Nami will peek this, and Moves gets 4 for their troubles. 3 more pips in the round after using their ult, and Winthrop stop the hemorrhaging, but will the bleeding still continue? It's just 1 round of problems until we see Baker College force us to Haven.
Moves coming up big, finally returning to form in that round, saving Winthrop from the brink of death, finding 4 kills that they needed and utilizing the ultimate to push back. They were in a 2v4 situation. That's a huge clutch coming out from Moves there. And I do like what Winthrop was able to do there. They were able to take so much space. Their team was spread out. Even though they got eliminated pretty early, it still bought enough time for the attacking the rest of the team to get the plant down, and that allowed Moves to get his ultimate. Now confidence on high, they're gonna solo swing down mid and immediately gonna get taken out by Riceballing, but this does buy Infiltrator some space as they're able to take down Ladder Moves, and look at the deep positioning they now have.
Olive Door is there, sure, and you have all the link to work with.
Here.
The Riceballing not too far away with Demon in stride, gives you a free flash bolts, but there's so many players there. Demon can't be given these for free. Down with Demon. It's Nasi finally making up for the losses of life that the team forfeited in Link, and it's a just graveyard of X's on your mini map in the top left. But Ollie has made headway towards B, has a full sightline to upper heaven, as well as laying now these smokes and constellations to ensure their safety into sight. And Nasi will do the exact same thing, tossing a haunt towards that Link alley. Get this plant in bronze default. Where can you go from here? Both players for the Baker College side coming from attacker spawn. They have all of this long haul, and the Cosmic Divide is down. Throw a Constellation in as well. Why don't you make this a gravity well, and you could pull Nasi back into it, and the Haunt could give you free low, but there's nothing free in the college Valorant scene in the championship. This series is on the line for Winthrop because map 1 just fell to Baker College.
Oh man, and the nerves on high there. How fortunate was it that Baker decided to double flank out of A? They had no information on the side of Winthrop to even guess that there was a flank there. And on that last shot, it was just poorly mistimed swing coming off the Haunt. Didn't even let the Haunt pop. I mean, let it pop. You can shoot him through the smoke. You know, it wasn't really a need for you to swing out into 2. But, you know, with the game on the line, pressure is high. Nerves are high as well. I can't really blame Nasi for doing that. They probably were trying to get one and make it a 1v1 fight. Still, though, huge win coming out from the side of Baker College. Yet another upset. Winthrop just can't seem to get a grip soon enough. We praised them for adapting, but they're giving up 4 or 5, sometimes even 6 rounds in a row before they can really adjust their defensive plans, their offensive plans. Things are just not falling in place for them, Scott.
Yeah, I think there is a glaring issue for Winthrop, and it is that these last 2 days have not been so kind to them, right? And there's a couple reasons for it. I won't say it's necessarily individual, but I do feel like when the opposing sides find a target to keep hitting, they don't have any way to make up for that. It feels like the depth of their strat book maybe is lacking. They're not expecting this player to lag behind. They're not expecting this strategy to start to falter. And I think there's a big agent difference on Pearl, which I never like to say the game is won in agent selection. That always feels like kind of a misnomer. But the difference between the fade and the value for the KO on this map was just so much higher. Imagine it's a KO there in that final 1v2. They can pop flash out of that smoke, and then both players have no sightlines, and you can swing that. As a fade, if you send that Haunt, yes, you can wait it out, Jackson, and shoot them as they get marked, but the chances of it actually being activated before it gets taken out by the covering player of Fate is so slim to none that there's no way to rely on that, which is why Nasi was having to so consistently toss the Haunt and then play the fake strategy of treating your Fade as a second duelist like they were so long ago on their release, when I called them a duelist for so long, because they just felt like it despite being an initiator. You have to move alongside that Haunt to try to frag alongside it, which is super similar to other aggressive new initiators like we see for Teo. They place the salvos, they move in, they toss out their stun, they move in, right? They're going in as a way to levy control, take down players, super frag centric. Fade is supposed to be this initiator that gives you information alongside hurting out the defenders, but you just don't see the value for that well. And on offense, where you would maybe think it would be the strongest, is have a beautiful Haunt tossed over on B site that can give you all of Link and still players on the site itself. We never got to see that really in full effect, because Winthrop never were in full effect, it felt like, for the first half, only getting the few rounds at the starting 4 and then the 2 directly split down the middle. Just was not a good look for them on offense, and it obviously was still strugglesome for their defense. Just a tough map and a tough pill to swallow, but it was Baker College's map pick, so you can still cope if you're Winthrop College or their fans. Now you're heading over to Years of Haven.
Yeah, but I'm concerned now for the side of Winthrop, because Haven was definitely a map that they struggled on. I'm just wondering to see what their plan will be today, right? They struggled yesterday against the Neon and in the Breach Stun. And it looks like when it comes to Haven, Baker like to run the Yoru as well. It's just been so tricky, but this time, not only do they run the Yoru, they're bringing an ISO into it, which is suppressive. It gives them a free shield to go in there, and it just feels very tough for anyone to try and hold any of these sites. There's just so much commitment there, and plus, Baker is really good on Haven defense as well, which is not normal for Haven at all.
And look over to what we saw just yesterday from Winthrop on Haven, right? It was not good. It was not pretty. And they still opted for it, right? Like, that's crazy. They still chose this, which, again, I talked about their team of adaptability. It always feels like they look at something that went wrong, and if they rematch them, they're going to win the rematch, because that's just what Winthrop can do. They weren't able to adapt on the fly, but it seems like post-game they can. Let's go and throw it over to our series to see how everything really broke down by the numbers. But we've kind of given a pretty good image for it, and I'm sure the scoreline is enough of an image there at the top of 13-7. It did feel like Baker College were in full control, and now we're heading over to a map that, Jackson, I think both you and I can kind of just say it out loud. We're very worried about Winthrop here, especially considering what we've seen and how good Baker still looked for this map, especially against a team like Cumberland, who I think is very good at the map of Haven. Even their B team, the Cumberland Destiny, are really good at Haven, and they take down really good teams that Winthrop has struggled against, like UGA Black, right? They've tore them apart like 13-2 on that map. Like, these are teams and programs that are really good at it, and now Winthrop is stepping over to it that I don't know. I'm really stressed, but look at the team that frags together, wins together mentality. Winthrop started to pick it up, as I think this is actually flipped. Winthrop started to pick it up and play a little bit better. Now, both sides should say with them, sorry. They started to pick it up and be a little bit better, but you turn that over for Baker College, and everyone was always on the ball, keeping it rolling. Demon, who was so up there top for a long time, then it turns the other way. Fate goes absolutely haywire at the end of the second half and the start of it, and I think that's just really what got the ball rolling in the right direction, and momentum took over the rest in Winthrop. You were not rolling a ball up the hill. You're getting absolutely trampled by it instead.
Demon was absolutely a huge factor coming out, just winning their 1v1s, getting the opening picks that they need for the rest of the team to flood onto the site. Now, I think honestly right now, the struggle for Winthrop is how do you stop the flood, right? How do you stop teams that are throwing out their utility in succession? Because yesterday we saw Harrisburg play the buddy system the entire way through. Today, Baker didn't really play a buddy system. They were just 4 or 5 strong almost every single time. And I think at this point, if you're Winthrop, lean into that double initiator just a little more, maybe give up some sites and play the 5v5 retake. Something to switch it up, because you're struggling so hard to anchor solo, maybe even double anchor. It's been a rough time for Winthrop.
How many mistakes can you continue to make? Time will tell, but if you make 13 of them on this map, Winthrop, it feels like that's going to be the end of your run here through the VAL Championship, the College Championship Series. We'll have to see, though. Before then, we're going to take a quick break. Do not go anywhere. Haven is next up on the docket. Can Winthrop make the recovery? Will Baker College pull off a underdog upset now 2 days in a row against the #1 seeded team heading into this? We'll see. History seems to be repeating itself here, Jackson. A map 1 scoreline that isn't so pretty for Winthrop in a Winthrop series. I think I've seen this one before. What do you mean? It's brand new. Map 1, very similar to what we saw just yesterday in our series that we highlighted for the second broadcast of the day. Winthrop falling apart as the #1 seeded team in an underdog story. Harrisburg just picking them apart. Scoreline, I think, was pretty much almost exactly the same too. It was pretty close to it if it wasn't exact. But now we get Winthrop over to, what'd you see? The same map they had the problem on just yesterday. And we've seen how good Baker College can be on this map because they put a good scoreline against Cumberland on this 2 weekends ago, or technically 1 weekend ago, last weekend in that series that we once again highlighted it. So we've been a little bit lucky to see the same teams now twice and kind of glean some information for it. And we still came into this one privately in DMs like, yeah, I think Winthrop will pick it up after yesterday. I think this will be a 2-0. I think there's a good shot for it. And Baker College has amazed us. They have done everything to prove that any thoughts, any consolations you could make as a Winthrop fan, or any ideas about what's going on in the championship, throw them out the window already. It's Valorant, baby. Nothing really matters when it gets down to the thick of it.
Man, and it's just, to Winthrop's credit, they are making some amazing plays. However, those plays come from individuals. We've seen rounds where Infiltrator pops off. We've seen rounds that moves clutch. We've seen rounds where Nasi gets multi-kills, right? But how long does individual play carry you in the long scheme of things? We've seen Baker just come by and win every single round. No players ever by themselves. In fact, they're running a utility for each other. They're comboing Dimensional Rift and Hunter's Fury, not only to guarantee kills, but also just buy so much time for the rest of the team to rush in onto site. Everyone is moving as a unit. We saw Winthrop struggle with this just yesterday. Harrisburg coming in, we mentioned how all the frags on the same team were all just within 2 kills of each other. Nobody was really just top fragging and carrying the lobby, right? And we're seeing that same struggle come out from Winthrop again today. So I want to see more combo of utilities. Maybe it was the lack of the flashes. Something. Set Infiltrator up for success. I feel like there's too much solo playing right now. And while they're getting the highlights, they're getting the clips, they're just not getting the round wins.
You talk about setting up a single player. Infiltrator's a good one, but I also think you need to prop up moves a little bit. What was the problem yesterday? Was moves, it felt like. And it's not just a moves problem, right? It kind of came down to Harrisburg really slammed that C site over and over and over again. It was a bleeding, gaping, festering wound. And before it could ever get patched up, we're in the second half. Things have changed, and Moves still was not able to do what they needed. When you play that Cypher on Haven, most of the time on offense, they're layering their trap wires, and then they're sitting just outside B to slow prowl up to then be that flanking player. Either B or Garage if they're hitting the C site, right? They are there to be a threat in that back line and cause problems. But they decided to make a big change. It looks like nothing's locked in just yet, obviously, but Moves will be over onto the Jet instead. They do not want to have the same problem that glared against them yesterday. And I said they're a team that can adapt so darn well, but they weren't able to do it in the middle of that series. But they sure as heck can do it in a next game against that same team, was what I said. But apparently not just that same team. Apparently it can also be against any new team, and this one will be Baker College. You have to keep an eye out.
Wow, I think this is going to be a much different Winthrop team with Moves on the Jets and Infiltrator on the Omen. This doesn't really feel like the style that we've seen these two players have, swapping, kind of swapping roles here. What I do think is going to work out for Winthrop on this side is the composition that Baker is running. It's not exactly like a in-your-face team. This is a composition that likes to pick and prod until they find a site that they decide to hit. There isn't really a space closer that we saw Harrisburg have with the Breach and the Neon. So this may just work out in Winthrop's favor. However, a lot of pressure is going to be on Infiltrator to stay alive. They're so used to being the first person to make engagements. They're so used to being the first person to take that 1v1. You can't do that if you're an Omen player. Once you're down on a map like Haven without a controller, it's very difficult to play post plant, to play retakes. There's too many angles that your opponents will be able to hold, especially on a site like A and C.
So glaring problems aside, I really do like to see how everything has kind of changed. But I also love Baker College's agent selection. I've always really liked the Yoru and ISO combo. And there are some compositions where you'll do things like a Neon in Yoru, and you'll bring out a Teo alongside it, right? And you have like super quick and swift offense that can execute super strongly. And while they don't have the Teo, and you can do plenty fine with Rice Spawn on that Sova. Sova is a great option for them. We saw that yesterday with Harrisburg, right? We saw just how good the Sova can be. We also know that it comes down to a lot for individuals and how confident they are for peeking those angles. And it really, Jeffy was crazy yesterday for that Harrisburg, for the Storm side. And it feels like that was one of the big difference makers overall, was knowing that this player felt like they could always peek absolutely every single angle if needed. As it's a quick sprint now onto the C site. It looks like Baker College are coming in with fervor, hoping to upset this Winthrop pistol round, knowing that they can be pretty darn good for it. But there's not very many weapons, obviously, in a pistol round to work with, nor the case for utility. As you'll clear out that sentry drone, wait to use that Nasi breach out and into space as the team tries to engage backwards, but countered by a Paranoia. It's 2 still up for Winthrop as Demon tries to sit static on site. 1 in towards Garage. Ladder Moves has to swing this, but has cover from the other side. Needs to get 2. Does! It's been stuck to half though, and the Recon Bolt may give you enough, but it's not going to matter. Flare! 1 HP! It doesn't matter! Defuse at the last minuta of a second. And Nasi gets the final kill for their 4th in that round, and you've already got that Rolling Thunder so close to being readied.
Oh man, and there we go, the 5v5 retake that I've been asking Winthrop to do. Moves finally falling back, not egoing the 5-man push that allowed them to utilize that spy cam, get some information. You saw the initiation utility coming out from the side of Winthrop. And I think it was just a little bit misplayed as well by Baker. They didn't have enough people to support site. As soon as the Paranoia and the Breach Stun came through, the 3 members that were on site trying to hold post plant were just taken out immediately. Now we're going to see a fast rush into Garage. But there's so much utility here to delay the push, and they have the weaponry as Moves finds 2 big kills with the Stinger. Nasi there to support as well. But the weaponry on the side of Winthrop just too strong this round. Ladder Moves now left in the 1v3. They do have a Sheriff on hand, and if they are able to get at least 1 pick here, I think this is still going to be a pretty decent second round for Baker.
You just want to shut down the eco for him, but you found the right target, arguably, to aim for, the Marshall Wielder instead of the Outlaw. But they weren't going to miss a shot like that, and Winthrop will carry 3 weapons over. 3 interesting weapons to carry over, you could argue for it, as they're all long-range snipers. But the case, nonetheless, that they have something to bring forward in that next round, and Baker College will start out with a 2-0 deficit, as is expected, and they have to take matters into their own hands to make this the stereotypical split of 2 and 1. And they didn't get as lucky for a plant in that round, and while theirs got defused in the round 1, they still got the credits for it, and they were close with all those kills. They'll have the money to buy up and engage, as the ISO wall will give them a free C-long hold and take for this orb, something Harrisburg fought for a lot in that series against Winthrop, and won pretty much every single time guaranteed, giving up the A-long one if necessary, letting then their KJ lock things down and hold on to the utility. Meanwhile, vice versa, we do still have Ladder Moves now over to the Cypher, who, like we had a little bit of a visual bug in Agent Select, moves back over the Cypher as well for Winthrop.
I'm just surprised nobody thought to carry over the Bulldog. I think that'd be a pretty useful weapon here in the bonus round, but it's all right. It seems that the plan is to just hold these long-range angles with the snipers and let Moves get some kills with the Bucky. Game plan for Harrisburg seems to be to get ISO the ultimate as fast as possible. That way they can isolate Moves and make those tripwires ineffective. When you see now the rotates coming over, Infiltrator has the Outlaw in hand, unable to find the shot, and will have to fall back there.
So as well, it gives you a free chance to take a site. Most of the time it's going to be C site. You pull one player off of it, whole team takes objective, and then even if your player dies, even if your ISO Fate loses that fight, which they've not been keen on doing throughout map 1, right? They were top fragging. You still have all your players there to then kill the player as they stabilize back into existence. Ollie, though, that's a martial shot to the head of Fate. That's not one you're willing to take a loss for if you're Baker College, but you still have rifles in hand. Cloudburst from upper side heaven. Infiltrator just trying to separate some sightlines and bait. They'll toss maybe one more out as they look to engage, but this dark cover layered by Nami and not very much HP could be a bit of a problem. It's 2 players drop from down below. Rice Ball and ladder moves combo for 1 apiece. The Nami was already low, but yeah, perfect coverage on this plant. And you have both sides watching and waiting. And no one from Winthrop is clearing that cubby directly out from Hall. Inexcusable, but still nonetheless a round win for Baker College.
Yeah. Bit of a miscommunication there. They had the round in hand. Even if they did not have the superior weaponry, they just didn't clear the angles that they needed. I can't even say that Baker won that round. It really was Winthrop losing that. But you know what? It's just a bonus. It would have been great for Winthrop to take that, but they have their bye round now. And it is a little bit broken on the side of Baker here.
Shots trying to go towards lower in hopes that maybe a player is there and they get some free damage. Infiltrator is prowled all the way in through long. Look at this. Obviously, the dark cover does separate those sightlines, but Infiltrator can flank in late here and really catch. Maybe even moves off guard. But Ollie just is unstoppable, even dealing with the double tap from Fate. As Infiltrator does deal with ladder moves eventually. It's a 2 versus 4, and while you do have sight, you have a player behind you and possibly more on the other side. There will be a plant that goes down nonetheless, forcing Rice Ball and back. You have Infiltrator now directly onto sight. Rice Ball will have no visual for them, and you've lost your only teammate, and that dark cover will dissipate just at the right time to refrag moments afterward. 3-1. Winthrop is, and Baker College, they get to sight, but they just lost so much in the process of doing so. It just was not as pretty as it could have been if only they were able to shut down the one player of Ollie who even took down Fate in the process.
I was a little concerned when I saw Ollie try to solo swing that short angle onto 3 people, but again, like I said, individual ability showing on the side of Winthrop. They're able to win out these gunfights in these precarious situations. So far, it's taken them that early lead, 3-1. And let's hope that this continues to carry over. I expect Baker to really come up with a plan here on their attack rounds to try and mitigate this bleeding.
Everyone bleeds. It's just a matter of keeping it slim. You're in an eco round if you're on Baker College, and no matter how much you do here on offense, it's really hard to close that gap. And you'd like to look towards B. It's a quick plant, can get you in, and you can find a lot of value for the Sheriffs up close in those either side links. But Fate's the only one to find any impact in the round, and it's refragged instantly back by Flare. Rice Ball now gets their own. Nazi is just trying to play in for map control there and pays the ultimate price. That would have been Spike if you win that one, which we would like to assume Nazi is typically good for. But Spike will be able to get onto this A site and get this plant down. And there's not much utility because there is no breach still available. No Nazi for Winthrop to really keep this back. Moves waiting up above. Paranoia to force players back. They do get Nami, but Demon's in with a stinger. Now waiting with a little bit of utility. Now Vandal in hand. This is absolutely doable now for the Baker College side, but they weren't able to get the spike down. That means they'll have to recollect it and commit to this plant at some point or another as the salvos buy for time. You touch this if you're Rice Balling, you gotta assume that Winthrop will dive into that space. And no, it doesn't even matter. Rice Balling and Demon first with Rice Balling follow suit, get their kills and the plant for credits to get Baker College an eco round win.
I don't like that retake coming out from Winthrop. I mean, it was a 4v2. All right, and yes, they utilized the utility to try and fight for this post plant, but how did you give up 2 members to Baker right here, allowing them to also pick up 2 rifles in an eco round? That a 4v2 became a 2v2 with upgraded weapons in that situation. I think if you're gonna commit to stopping the plant, all 4 players have to rush in at the same time. You can't even up the numbers for them and give up your numbers advantage, Scott.
As well as the fact that A site's the most retakeable objective in the entire game, for goodness sake. You literally let them have it. That's just how A site works. And they did a good job of stalling. That's what Teo does really well. That's why they had it up. Past that, it feels like a misnomer. Here comes the ISO ult. Great shots connecting from Fate. Demon as well gets Flare off the board, but this is just an overall cut for the side of Baker College, just finding player after player after player in these one-on-one confrontations. And it's now given them 3 to start things off with nothing going back the other way. Just some damage to Fate and Demon. And Fate's had that double tap for the extra layer of helping just to give them something along the way. And Baker College looked like they're about to tie this game up once again, 3-3.
No, such a tough round loss because they don't have the weaponry to try and prevent this tie right now. As you are going to see moves find a pick, but it's going to get immediately traded out. Ali now left by themselves in this 1v4, just a classic in hand. Not really anything that you can expect them to do, right? So in this case, we saw for Winthrop early the success that they get from just playing the retake, just being patient. It's a matter of 3 seconds, Scott, before they really try to push by themselves. And these last couple of times, the ego has started to come through. The individual ability has been shown, and they just are not able to really pull out the rounds that they need. These are crucial rounds that they're losing here.
As well, there is a big difference overall for Winthrop on this as well. Flare is not on the Teo. And just yesterday in their series against Harrisburg, Flare was on the Teo, like they were on Pearl. They were their initiator to look at, right? Besides Nasi, who's one of the best initiators on Collegiate, and I still swear by that. Flare has been their one trick for Teo, and it feels like if there is a Teo to be brought, Winthrop will play Flare. But why, oh why, has the change been made for Ollie over to the Teo instead and Flare off towards Omen? I'm not saying that there's a big difference right now, it feels like, but I do think that Ollie is such a solid controller player. Maybe this could be where we see it being a little bit slow, not able to keep Baker off of these sites. Maybe a bit of a stall game that you would like to have be a little bit more cohesive on C, not allowing them to try to get that ult orb so quickly. There is none of that congestion working right now for Validity. And I would also like to see maybe Ollie, I'm going to have to work and make sure I'm not saying Flare for the Teo, maybe on that C site using the salvo to keep them off the ult orb to stall out the ISO barricade, the ISO wall that goes down that lane, and just try to survive it to make sure that it can't be fought for completely.
Now we see 2 operators being used in contention here. Deep positioning by Moobs. Flare with the bait, and they do not check Moobs. Moobs has a chance to do the incredible right here, but the damage is mitigated as they are able to get traded out. However, the Flare on site finds 2 of their own as well, and they finally have the numbers advantage that they've been waiting for. Nami finds a pick of their own now, left in the 1v2 situation, has the spike, has from the shadows as well, will teleport straight out of there, and they should be able to get the plant down pretty open. They have Heaven angle to play for, and sure, they're going to TP to Heaven, but I think it's heard by Infiltrator.
The operator collected and used. And this was kind of the fear, I think, for Baker College, getting this back into the hands for Infiltrator. We said a lot for Winthrop, and I pointed out, put the operator back in Infiltrator's hands, because without it, it's hard for Winthrop to find these first bloods. It comes in, they get kills. Now you can look at maybe Baker College struggling on their offense a little bit here or there. But Winthrop is kind of the opposite of consistency this last weekend in general, so will that continue to be an ever-present threat, or will things go the other way? And even Latimer's having an operator was a pretty tongue-in-cheek, funny offense moment, but they really wanted to hit that C site. That's why they played the super stall. Didn't go for ult orb immediately. They didn't need to get it online. It was just a matter of stalling to force anyone from Winthrop to go towards the audio cues and utility baits that were placed towards A and B. Hopes that no one would be there on C, but a shock factor in moves can be just enough to give a bit of an edge. As a shock dart clears the trapwire layer here towards B, it looks like we'll see Baker College go for an unexpected rush in through to the B site, where no one is actively in wait for Winthrop.
Enemy mark.
They know that. Now the Alajone getting all the information possible into sight. They're baiting utility. They want to bait the ult. They want the Armageddon or the Rolling Thunder from Nasi.
Huge though from Ali, not investing. Oh, not investing that Rolling Thunder off of that fake. They're looking to just play a B retake here, which I think is a better move. They do have all the ultimates to prevent the plant, or even just prevent any sort of post-plant positioning. The spike will finally go down as the missiles are going to come out. Rice Balling able to squeak out with just a little bit of damage, and they're going to get aggressive here. Catch Flare on the timing in the smoke. And now you see Nasi in prime position for that Rolling Thunder. They just got to wait for the rest of the squad to come in. Rolling Thunder will hit, but Nami dodges it. Moves, maybe spotted out here, gets the first pick down, but they will get traded by Nasi. Still, so much control here for the post plant. Infiltrators got the work out for cut out for them with this operator, unable to hit that shot, but Nasi and Ali to trade 2v2 situation on this post plant. The fall line will come through to delay any type of stun, and I like this teleport from Demon as they both get to double swing from the same angle. Beautifully done on the side of Baker College.
The Yor is just so strong. You always saw Cumberland absolutely pick apart Demon on every map they played against them. It just didn't really feel like Demon was able to be as crazy as they could have been. Winthrop are falling into the right strategy and the right ideology that Baker College are looking for. They don't have to put Demon in the cubby down there in courtyard. They don't have to worry about that because Demon can TP over there even if they lose out on Rice Ballin' on that peak. And they do. They get their one. They trade out afterwards. And they had that man advantage. And even if they didn't have the man advantage, they're in control in this post plant because they were all able to get back towards courtyard, just leaving Nami up above on boxes, and Nami got their value trade before they went down. This is where we are looking to see Baker College pound the rock and punish this Winthrop defense for being complacent. They waited with the ultimates and they paid the price, and they didn't get enough value from it because Baker College only had to move one player actually into sight to get the spike down, knowing about how passive Winthrop are playing it. Everyone could already be positioned for a post plant, which is a glaring problem in collegiate. It feels like for a lot of teams not readying for the post plant in time, not something Baker College had to worry about there.
Beautifully done. You see Demon trying to slip the angle here and perhaps give some anxiety over onto that A side. You see the smoke's gonna come down for short, but it was all just a fake. However, Winthrop's not falling for it. They are still gonna hold steadfast on these other sites, doubling up in garage as well, so perhaps making a read that the hit will eventually lead back towards that C site. Those smokes have been dropped for Flare, so we're going to see the press coming through, and this is a save round coming out from the side of Winthrop. All of this utility now being used, all just to be a rotate towards the C side.
And you just want to burn the salvos. That's kind of the big thing here, is to make sure that Bali does not have the utility for the remainder of this. And you could even suppress when you had ISO, it had Fate go for it. It was a bait over towards C, and once again, they'll position correctly for a post plant. Flare had an easy sight line towards Nami. It is what it is, but you still have Demon holding out and Rice Ballin' close by. This is where Baker College know. I love seeing them play the entire map. You have so much time, Baker, allotted to you. Might as well take use of it. I harped heavily on Winthrop just last map for trying to do that, but they never changed. They never had a curveball. They never just tried to go the other way and bait out that somebody on second base who's going to try to make a run to third, right? There was no steal. They just straight fastballed it onto the site and waited the entire time until the ref finally goes, okay, guys, we've had enough of standing. Throw the ball. Winthrop are not doing what we're seeing Baker do, and maybe this will change in the second half for Haven, but Baker, it's just, they're always different, something new, and it really is throwing a wrench into Winthrop's idea.
Still though, Infiltrator will find the first pick onto Nami there with that operator. The hit's gonna come towards that C site, but there are no tripwires being that. Aldron will spot out one in the back and moves. I'm able to find one in that trap position. Fate to get a pick as well. Now the armor's gonna come out, but Flare able to win out. Demon to support still. The Armageddon is gonna come, but it feels a bit too late, Scott. I mean, it's almost useless at this point. Did no damage, doesn't really secure the site for them, and nobody's really there to retake either. The Infiltrator will find a pick, but will that be enough?
Operator, damage done to them, but wow! Able to just hold things down. Why is ladder moves also swinging that there? So unexpected. And a price to be paid. Now twofold heading into round 11. Ultimates are there for your offensive Baker College. You've got 3 in the back pockets. But you would really like to get Fate once again for their ults. They had that 1 kill. They're 1 pip away. It'll be an ult orb collectible in this round, likely towards C long as you'd expect. And that will free up a either round 11 or round 12 surge into sight. But you'd like to do it when there's not very many ultimates still available. Demon comes out, dimensional drift. They can block that door and have all of lower be easily quenched, but they'll do so instead off towards a long. They lose a process. There's ladder moves off the board. Nami as well, getting a frag. Demon swinging again. Doesn't know there's a player just the other way, and goes down as Fate's onto sight, trying to hop past the sight line from Flare. It's a 2-on-2, and Fate gets them in the ultimate. Not the player they expected, but still one. No chance with a gun. What is happening here? And it's Rice Ball having to watch moves exit out from space. The ults, something I said you'll see often on C. They do it on A, and it's 6 guaranteed at half for Baker.
A lot of information and space being bought off that dimensional rift and Hunter's Fury. Meanwhile, Moves doing their best to try and mitigate on the weak side of the map, finding a pick of their own. But there was so much attention being caught over onto that A site that it really allowed Nami to just find a lurch that they need, getting 2 more picks to bring the numbers back into their favor. And what happens as a numbers advantage for Winthrop easily becomes their disadvantage, as they just don't have enough support on that strong side, Scott.
Absolutely, and to make matters worse, you're in the last round in Eco, right? It's just, it's hard pressed for success, but you're getting a lot of damage out, and Ollie is kind of getting some big waves off into A long. Infiltrator down to 10 HP, trying to work through shorts. They're just trying to bury their face into their problems. If you're on the side of Baker College, just run at the enemy. But Infiltrator is a single pip away from their Blade Storm, and Flare has a From the Shadows on top. So if you let them into A long and that old door is still there, they could very well get that locked in, as Flare gets information with the From the Shadows, and it will be a sprint game for Infiltrator. It takes 9 seconds, I think is the total, 8 seconds to go from A site to C site. I don't remember what exactly it is. I used to have all the random tidbit stat facts for this map, but it never really matters in the name of the game, because in collegiate, anything can happen and nothing ever truly matters. Even the seeding, like Winthrop being #1 and being taken down by Harrisburg yesterday, and now struggling against Baker College, as Infiltrator will see Fate. They know they're off into Link, connecting to Defender spawn, and they know this is planted for them, and there's just no real just shortcomings to give up for Flare. How do you get closer to this to play? Suppressed, now vulnerable, just a couple seconds left for it. Can't really tap this spike. Able to isolate. What a shot from Flare! Out into the open, and down goes both. It's 6-6 half again in this series.
Oh man, the positioning coming out from the side of Baker College here, they split up a little too hard. It turned into a 1v1 twice for Flare, able to hit those shots, just swinging out at the most opportune time. Everything was played perfectly by Baker College, except for that final moment. 6-6 half for Winthrop. Honestly, you want that on defense. You kind of just want a half there, especially after the struggles that they had in the early part. But honestly, this puts Winthrop in a really good position, as they are a very strong attacking team. The only problem is Baker is really good on defense on Haven. They're actually better on defense than they are on attack. So we're going to have to see if Winthrop is able to pull one out here, or they'll be facing elimination.
And coming in as the #1 seed, that's a target on your back from the get-go, Jackson, right? That is the #1 thing to fear. Nami, look at the fearlessness, though. Oh, they pay the price. That's gotta be the worst way possible to try to rush through into that. And Winthrop have a major man advantage that just gets even more disparaging. Only Fate remaining in a dire 1v4. Infiltrator, yes, is at 10 HP. But you're still coming from Link, and they'll have full control now over to this A site, where the post plant seems nigh insurmountable. And you just have to hope that you can squeak away some damage, get a little bit of credits to your name. The chance for a win is so slim to none, especially when Infiltrator is tucked away in this corner and already has 4 pips to their ultimates at the end of this 13th round.
I have never seen an Omen make a play like that before, so props to Nami for props to Nami for the creativity, I guess. But this is like, you know, it's pistols. you're sighted up, but they can still see you because your range is just not there, and nobody there to support either. Maybe it was a miscommunication. Rice Bally was probably supposed to be pushing as well, so they have a crossfire, but it just never happened, and A site was just basically free for Infiltrator at that point.
Drone used inside of A short to get a bit of information. You do actually spot 2 in the process. You're watching just below. Flare with that Bulldog, and now Ollie joining in just with one of their own. As Nasi waits back with that ghost. Nasi is so patient to not buy anything, always for these round 2s. I highlighted a little bit yesterday and a little bit on map 1. Doing the exact same thing once again. Classic in hand, tons of damage, but Infiltrator just dices up. Demon and Rice falling on site. It's a full course meal for Winthrop on A, and there's nothing Baker College could do with the limited weapons they have at hand, as we are about to enter a post-plant scenario with a spike going down in default in line of moves and fate with just a basic pistol to work with, having to make major moves against a team that has been no laughing matter throughout all of the college scene so far, but to make matters worse, you're doing so as an underdog, and they're out for vengeance, especially after the poor result they feel like they had at the end of map 1.
This is gonna be pretty much a save coming out from the side of Fate. Not safe, but like trying to die to Spike. You can't really do too much damage at this range anyway. So they're gonna try their best to not give up the ultimate orb. Look at that, down to 1 HP, literally. And I think if I'm oh, okay, yeah, that works. But you still give them the kill.
So you're fine giving them the kill. You just don't want to give too much to it, I guess. I don't know.
Still an ultimate point.
Yeah. That's life, though. You're gonna give it up at some point. You get one too. Hey, value, right?
Yeah, true.
I think it's about kind of mitigating the overall losses. They're like the old Abyss strategy for the whole team. If they're in an eco and they just all jump off the map simultaneously.
Oh yeah, I do that in my rank games. We kind of just like
I love
ourselves.
that actually. I love that strategy. I think that it's so darn funny. But at the end of the day, what's really funny is now you have Baker College having all their weapons to work with, and you at least have a couple still good ones in the right hands for Winthrop. 2 Bulldogs before they're not late. Nasi is picking themselves up a Phantom after not buying in the 14th round. But Infiltrator has that Blade Storm that charged up early in round 1, and it's turned into a Winthrop slaughterhouse. Thanks to that, and Nasi with this Phantom. Only Rice Spawn left, and you're likely going to just save this off into A heaven. And if you're Winthrop, honestly, I'm sending Nasi to hunt for this. They've got 4,800 credits. They are sitting fine. Move them alongside moves. Move them alongside even Flare, who's got full HP. Try to get this player off the board.
I mean, you also get another ultimate count, right? They're 2 away, so whether they get the kill or whether they die, they're going to have the ultimate the next round, and I think that's well worth the hunt here. And that round was over as quickly as it started. Infiltrator goes in there, closes the space, and just takes out 3 with the Blaze Storm. Rice Ball in a precarious situation here. They're gonna get stunned. They almost gets the kill, but there it goes. Nasi finishes it off. 1 point away from the Rolling Thunder.
And it's been a Winthrop half to start. 4 in a row now for them. Obviously the last round of the first half. And Baker College will say, okay, we need a timeout. We need to talk things through. 9-6 isn't really where we want to be, and we're now stepping into this round with no weapons. Even if we had saved, we would have had to make the decision to force alongside them. This looks like Winthrop will very well be reaching double digits in this next of round 16. And we call it the checkpoint or chokehold, and it did not keep Baker back. 13-7, yeah, they got there and they kept moving. The second half was a lopsided affair for them. Winthrop are trying to repeat the exact same thing. And we mentioned it, they're a team that adapts on the fly. They're a team, or not on the fly, but they're a team that adapts from their mistakes. And while they were incapable of doing it on the fly yesterday, they are now using their losses and their problems from yesterday as a way to bring this team together in a positive manner today now against this Baker College roster on Haven. Yeah, Moves is still bottom fragging, but does that matter? Their role has been so much more effective. The question is going to be, can their offense be more effective? Because I think they literally had 4 kills in total on Haven at the end of that yesterday. They've already got 9, and it's only been a couple rounds into the second.
It's getting tough. This is tough to get bonused on your defensive side because this is a steamroll kind of map. we need to see the plan now for Baker is to try and push out of mid and take that control. But we do see Winthrop playing it smart, trying to keep the distance. The flash is going to come out, but Nasi already holding the angle, taking out Rice Ballin.
Demon's not too far away from it. Maybe they're hoping for a second swing by Fate, but it is a sprint by Winthrop. They know that they had so many players pressing on them, so they just go, okay, it's A site once again. And we're seeing a lot like what Harrisburg did, constantly spamming the C side over and over again. Now it's Winthrop doing the exact same thing, but this time now towards A. We've seen them already hit C effectively, but A has been pretty darn clean for them. That's both, and they're just making sure they're dead. Gotta make sure it's Fates. They have a double tap. Gotta make sure you sometimes triple tap just the same, and it'll be just Nami and Ladder Moves remaining in a 1v5.
And now we're seeing how tough it is, really, for a team without the breach. Because Nasi was not playing the breach yesterday, and it really hurt them. This time around, they have the Rolling Thunder once again for this gun round. Let's gotta see if Demon is able to find these picks with that operator, or if they get some early information to try and sniff out the attack. But Winthrop playing with so much patience, so much discipline on this half.
And also having so much trust in moves to lock down this flank and get this. And we talk a lot about being them on offense. Your Sentinel, your Cypher has to be a lagging behind player. They're they lone prong in towards B and flanking through Link, right? If you know it's Nico around, that's less of an important matter, and it's more so about watching that flank actively. You still don't want to give them that phantom, because we've seen giving up a single rifle like it did twice on Pearl be the undoing of a lot of rosters. Nami, though, gets themselves a good frag back towards Moobs, who opens up this round. Nasi now attempting to go for a plant, trying to bait out anyone from this Baker College side to re-engage in towards the objective. This one's planted down for long. It doesn't mean it's impossible. Both players of Nami and of Ladder Moves trying to go through Garage, but Nami's going crazy. 3 to their name, finally shut down by Nasi, and it's a one-on-one. Nasi working towards Hall, spotted and pinged by the Owl Drone. Rice Ballin knows they're here towards back of sight, but Nasi is the clean, clinical finisher, and there it is again. 11 now for Winthrop, and the ball is rolling, and it's Baker this time succumbing to the pressure.
They had the perfect flank by Rice Balling. Why give up your position with an Hour Drone when you're the only one left alive? I don't think Nasi had any idea that they were there. Eventually, they would check it, but they just were not in position to kind of swing out and get the trades and fight with the team. It's so unfortunate. I really was keeping my eye on Rice Balling the entire time. I figured that they would be the one to run the round for them, but maybe a misclick or something. I don't know, Scott. I don't think that Owl Drone was a smart move.
I could see the intent, right? They don't have any information as to where, you know, Nasi is, so you want to try to give yourself that little bit of an edge. But there's so much of that site that's free for Nasi to go into, you kind of feel pressure to use it. And there's only 2 places you could possibly come from, because Nasi had control of Garage already.
Whoa.
But now Ladder Moves is kind of doing some crazy things. Does get rid of 2 here towards mid window. Trying to flank in fast to deal with 1 more. You could get the guns here in mid, and that will be likely the choice for Ladder Moves as the team rotates on over to plant on A. And Winthrop, with this spike going down, will have stamped their intent in service to a 12-6 split, which we did in fact see as well in that first game on Pearl. And when you saw Winthrop win a single to stay alive, and then it turned into the 13th for Baker College. Can Ladder Moves pull out what seems impossible? 1 player stepping just outside of Hall. Did not get spotted by Moobs. They don't have the gun ready in time, and it's a free headshot for Moobs. Why are you swapping there, Ladder Moves?
Want to hit inspect real quick on that Kuronami knife.
I gotta pull out my teddy bear and squeeze it 15 times for the camera. Like,
they're just checking their phone for any notifications. But honestly, well done coming out from the side of Ladder Moves. They were getting the picks that they needed. They just didn't have the weaponry to keep up on this map. It's going to be match point now. It's kind of difficult. Timeouts is finally coming. I feel like as soon as you got... Oh, they did call one after the bonus. Okay, so they're using their second one. Good. I don't really see what they can really do here. They don't have the credits to buy up. I think this is just the GG Codex at this point and play for Lotus.
I mean, you've given them every round of the second half, right? I mean,
Yeah.
losing round 14 was kind of this big nail in the coffin, and not able to make up for it in round 16 just makes matters worse, right? I think there's or sorry, 15 and then 17. It makes matters worse. I think you have to kind of just take it on the chin. GG go next, but heading over to Lotus, I think both these teams have their glaring problems on that map, and it's going to come down to individual differences again. And I think Winthrop have snipped a lot of the problems there in the bud. And they didn't have to play Pearl yesterday. They did have to play Lotus and Haven. And look at how they've changed up their playstyle from yesterday in comparison to today. They're infinitely better, and now the team that they're facing could be a lot weaker. We don't really know how Harrisburg versus AXS, aka Baker College, are against each other, but you're comparing apples to oranges. Every team's going to be really difficult, but Winthrop has just been playing a different game and a whole lot better about it. We do know that on Lotus, they like to see a pretty solid overall strategy. Look at the little bit of a juke and jive there with the Dimensional Drift to TP back that way. Moves, though. Fate, where the heck are you looking at that point, man? You got to be helping out your teammate inside lobby. This just feels like Baker College are shooting themselves in the foot by improperly positioning themselves for success.
Yeah, this round and map is just about over. They really tried their bread and butter, Sova, Yoru ult combo, but the footsies from Moves just dancing around both of them was able to stay alive and find the 2 picks that they need. Moves stepping it up huge this time on the Winthrop. And there we go. As expected, the 13-6 after seeing the economy, Winthrop putting on a strong showing, Scott, to take that second map and bring this match to a map 3.
Again, you compare it to yesterday when it was a little bit better, right? I feel like for Winthrop, I mean, Harrisburg just was a really good team on this map, and their constant hit towards C, the tie at half, and then the absolute slaughter in the second. You have to kind of think about the playstyle differences between them and Baker College, and we saw glimpses of the similarities, them going for the ultimate economy, playing that macro game, trying to battle for congestion, turning it the other direction and saying, okay, how can we fight on this side? But there was just nothing in the second half in comparison to the Storm, who did play majority in that second half so confidently, so dominantly to get a lopsided score the other direction now, which has been turned on its head for Winthrop. So knowing that they've changed up this map, heading over to Lotus, you got to expect it's going to be the same thing. Can Winthrop get another 12 or 13-6? I don't know. But I do think that they are the favorites heading into the final map, knowing that they're capable of being this much better in a substantial fashion than they have been previously with their failures, Jackson.
Yeah, I agree. Baker College not historically good on a map like Lotus, and even though Winthrop was struggling yesterday, from what I saw in Haven, I think they fixed a lot of their problems, opting to play for that retake, opting to play for those executes instead of these 1v1s. Even though Infiltrator has been winning a majority of their 1v1s, you don't want one of your star players to continue to have a rough time. I think it evidently comes down to the composition. There wasn't a space closer, all right, on the side of Baker College. You didn't really put a lot of pressure on the defense, and which is why they were only able to get 6 rounds on offense. Just not very normal for Haven. It's usually a 7-5 half, and because of that, they also didn't have the stuns from Breach to necessarily stall. I don't think they had any mollies for that composition at all. No mollies, no stuns, no missiles, nothing like that to really stop a flood. And when you're up against the flash and dash combo of Breach and Jet, which Nasi and Infiltrator have made their bread and butter for a few years now, it's going to be pretty tough to hold out on a map like Haven.
And now you turn that over for Lotus if you're Baker College, and your typical strategy is you have your Omen as your controller. You have brought out Vipers, but you'll kind of change that out occasionally. They'll do Viper, Breach, Taeho, Yoru alongside the Omen, or they'll do a Breach, Taeho, Vice in Yoru. It just kind of depends on, I think, the opponent they're facing. So we'll have to see if they've done their homework, which is kind of the big question. Compare the stats here for Baker College versus map 1. Fate went from top frag to bottom frag, 7 and 18, and then turn that over to Winthrop. Nasi with 22 and 12, was so consistent at staying alive and being a big key player, which you expect from them. Infiltrated the flash and dash combo alongside them, clean and clinical, and Moves, who got 4 kills in total on this map yesterday. Literally target banned, basically with no ban system in Valorant. They just said, we don't want to let you play the game. Gets 18 this time around instead of just the 4 they had. This was a new Winthrop, and it feels like they were able to have all their players participating where they should. This is what we expect from Winthrop. This is why they were a #1 seeded team. But they have to prove that they can stay that #1 seeded team, even though they've been dropped out of the upper side, and win through this lower by getting rid of a team that everyone thought should have been a lot easier, that being Baker College. But on this next map, the question has to get answered. Is Winthrop capable of making up for the problems they had previously twice in a row, or did they put all their eggs in the proverbial basket of a 2-0 series that obviously didn't go their way on map 1?
I think they do. And a lot of this comes from the Yoru run trick on the side of Baker College. I don't like to single out agents because I do believe every agent has their ability to turn the tides, but there's just not enough defense pressure that Yoru is able to provide. They have to peak and get aggression for themselves every time. Meanwhile, on the side of Winthrop, you have the Rays, and you have the breach stun, and you even have a Neon coming out sometimes that's able to add those stuns, add those stalls, take that space aggressively. I just don't know if there's enough tricks in the pocket for Yoru to really like win out Lotus, especially if it goes the distance.
Yeah, I think the whole reason we saw Baker College really struggle against Cumberland, and I felt like that was a good matchup, was because there was a Yoru 1 trick, and Cumberland just shut that down. They just did not let Demon participate. Same way Moves was yesterday. But we're going to go and take a quick break. Before we jump on over to map 3, stay tuned. This one is absolutely guaranteed to be a banger. I think it's our first 3 map we've actually had together, Jackson, in the CVAL Championship or the College Championship through this part of the semester so far. So looking forward to seeing how the third map will fare. Can Winthrop pull the comeback out after a lopsided map 1 and turning it around, or will we see Baker College finish the job they started all the way back on Pearl and make up for the losses on Haven? We'll find out after this break. A tough series and behind us, and still a tough series in front of us as it's still ongoing here, Jackson. The trials and tribulations, the problems that have been glaring for both sides. That's been 13-7 on map 1 on Pearl and 13-6 on map 2 on Haven, with Baker followed by Winthrop taking their map wins. At least we can say there's been no connection problems, and whether or not that has been in the case for other series, we've seen it on Pearl, and thankfully we haven't had to see it for a while, and that may be very well thanks to Exit Lag, the sponsor for this. They ensure a better and faster connection routes to all of your game servers. They eliminate connection issues with a single button press. They are very much so a worthwhile, what would we call it? An application, an app to go ahead and download and have on your processes. I know that I struggle a lot sometimes with inconsistent network speeds, and sometimes just being that little bit closer on that VPN to connect to those servers can be just the right thing to help out. But these players are going to need a little bit more than just Exit Lag to help out for this third map. They're going to need to clock in themselves, because they're going to have to treat this like a 9 to 5 and work to get the job done.
This is elimination map now, and this is something that both teams are going to try their best. I think it swings a little bit more in favor of Winthrop, but after the showing of the last couple of maps, it's really anyone's game. I do expect this sort of championship pedigree and experience that Winthrop has together as a team to eventually win outs, but we do see a lot of clever plays coming out from the side of Baker, especially on that Yoru. Are they able to be tricky enough to get 13 wins? That remains to be seen, but best of luck to both teams in this matchup.
Yeah, I think there's only one thing we could say, and that's best of luck. The rest has to be said on the battlefield of Lotus. And these teams and these players have at least started off on the right foot, Jackson. Each getting a map win, each having a chance to shine. This is where all the dogs have to be laid to rest. For Lotus, for Baker, we've seen them do the Omen, the Viper, the Breach, the Teo, and the Yoru. It looks to be the exact same thing we'll see coming out from them here. So expect to see that Teo locked in for Rice Ballin. That has been pretty much their go-to initiator alongside that Breach for this map. For a lot of teams is the case. And then for Winthrop, we saw them just yesterday, but we've seen them a couple times before on this map. Sova, Neon, Cypher, Omen, and Teo, but they're bringing out the Vice of all things here for Moves. Maybe liking what they saw yesterday coming out of their previous series against Harrisburg and going, okay, we want to kind of employ something along the same lines and have this Vice be there to shut down that Yoru, which is plenty fine, but I did feel like got really countered by the Yoru on that first map of Pearl. So I don't really know if picking the Vice is as strong of an option as it could be against, say, other teams that aren't Yoru run tricks like Demon is.
And plus, with the double controller, I think there's a lot of space that Baker can deny, at least information, right? You do see on the side of Winthrop, they are an info-heavy squad right now with that double initiator, especially the Tejo and the Sova. My main concern will always just be, can Yoru combine with the utility of Breach and Tejo to really bring that value? I guess we'll have to see here as they are going to start off hitting the C site where Moobs has posted up.
Oh, and that Sentry drone got stuck inside of the Vice Thorns, which is a pretty good counter forward as well, but nothing that you're really expecting to get the most out of. Nasi gets the first blood in this round, though, and of the series for map 3. As it goes into a fight in Winthrop's favor. Everyone's low, though, on their side, so it's an easy cleanup for Baker College's remaining remnants. Flare down to about, I don't know, what is that, like 6 HP? Maybe not even 10, 9 HP. And not much remaining either the other way. And Nami's an easy cleanup with 43 HP, now left to 0 from the swing from Moobs back through C main. Winthrop will get their first round win, then hopefully use that as that momentum point. The ball rolling downhill, because we saw how well that worked from in the second half for Haven.
And we see immediately Winthrop taking advantage of the composition from Baker College. They do not have a Sentinel, so you need somebody to really lurk. And while Nami was playing that role, trying to lurk up on B main, it gave so much space for Winthrop to just W key out of A and have that pinch fight that they needed. Moves recognizing that quickly as well, pushing out of C fast to try and get that crossfire, as Infiltrator will find a first pick onto ladder moves.
Ooh, TV out. Demon go from here, though. Ladder moves already off the boards. He blocks out in that Viper. It's just about trying to claw back a frag or two, and look what Demon and Nami can do. One more chance, possibly, to the B site for the plants, but Moobs has a perfect crossfire with Ollie, and it's now just a single remnant of Nami remaining, and they're rushed through by Moobs just the same. They're tallying up the ult orbs just like we saw Demon do at the start of that second half on Pearl, and like Infiltrator did to start on Haven. This is what you expect to see. Big standout players, especially when it comes to the Vices for this map, and I mentioned this with Cumberland, then you're talking about J-Phone. You also will see it the same way. Just yesterday, I talked about seeing the Vice go all alone by their lonesome for Harrisburg. We're seeing Winthrop do the exact same thing now with Moves. Kind of let them off the leash a little bit. Let them run around, be fast, shut down big plays. And now, with Baker College having all the weapons in hand, maybe pray that Moves with this judge can be just enough of a jury and the executioner to shut down one or two.
So far, in this series alone, after 2 maps, we've seen 3 bonuses being won by these teams. So I really hope that trend breaks right here, because if you're Baker, you cannot afford to be bonused again. As you see, the wall is going to pop up over on that C site, so they know that they have already committed bodies there. This positioning being played now by Winthrop is very strong. We have Flare over on top of Rubble, and they know that they haven't peeked out yet. And there hasn't been a need for Winthrop to rotate towards any site. They're still going to try and prop for information here. The smoke's going to come out. The execution is going to come right about now. The stun's going to try and stall. Ali trying to play the buddy system, but unable to find anything. They will get taken now, and Flare now trying to make a play over on this Rubble side. Are they able to do it? The angles are collapsing on them, but they somehow just leave him be and let him survive. Because... yeah, and it's all because Demon has pushed it up so far into that C spawn. They know that C is open, but Nasi with a nasty flick is going to take down Demon. Now they have this 4v4 retake to come out, and this is not looking too good on the side of Baker.
They're just peeking into fights. They shouldn't have to be. Spotted is Nami by the recon bolt. Arc Rose out, and Winthrop are dicing apart this Baker College post plant. Nami at the corner gets their second. Not the wisest peak option there for Flare, but no paranoia may gave them limited options. And they'll send a shock dart just around that crate. Nami, 65 HP, sneaking up on Nasi. Down they go, and Rice Ballin has cover from close to mound. It will be a Baker College round win, but it cost them a whole heck of a lot here, Jackson. 3 out of the 5 of the weapons they brought to the table. They'll still likely force the rest of the team up alongside it to stretch out those credits as much as possible. But you'll finally have Winthrop with all rifles in their hand, staging up for round 4. And so much of that success comes off of the failure for Demon to actually get that frag towards defender spawn, as well as the initial fight from Ollie that fell apart for Winthrop on A. And they never were capable of taking down your smoke player of Flare, who just stayed alive so long, which again, why are Arlie and Flare switching? I'm not too sure, but it worked for map 2, so why not for map 3 as well?
See now early control of A Rubble. The Neon stun, the Yoru teleport, and the fake out is gonna come, but there's just so much stun and utility driving them back. The Hunter's Fury as well, and Nasi gets a pick from distance. Now Demon's gonna get taken out because they're kept on an island by themselves, already losing so many members. Moves taking advantage to push out of C main to find a pick of their own. Meanwhile, Ladder Moves will get a constellation kill, but that's all they'll get. We do see Nami now left in the 1v4, finds 2, but 5 HP, has the regen. Gonna shadow step into sight, but they have no information about where the rest of Winthrop is.
With only 5 HP, what can Nami do here? Has to be so unseen and unheard. An Omen with the cloak hiding obfuscated. I think maybe this is the right player for it. But it's a blap all the way through B Heaven and in towards defender spawn and all the way across the ropes on A. Ladder moves his intent as the Viper is to once again, like we saw happen just yesterday, be that lonesome player lagging on this side and using the toxic screen as a pivot point, but I don't think we've seen much of that from him. At least not through these first 4. Flare's waiting just on the other side of tree. Nami will begin this plant, and it should be a chance for the swing through if they go through that smoke. The timing will be tight, and it's an easy one for Flare. Nami did not need to still be out in the open to try to get that smoke all the way up into top ropes. They could have been in garden already to do so. Because they weren't, it's an easy spot for the Winthrop player. And they'll go up now 3-1 as they're just making sure their bullet effects are still working. And they will rise to the occasion for a lead once again, not letting it tie up 2-2.
And this is where it becomes so difficult trying to run that Yoru. There's just so much utility being thrown by Winthrop to separate and isolate that Yoru. They didn't have a teleport to come out, and they don't have the supporting utility for them to capitalize on. The way that Neon is able to close those distances, close those gaps, and even provide a stun of their own. Now, we see Baker College back on another eco round, and it seems like they're going to try and do a strong side hit over onto that C side. We saw this happen earlier in the pistol round, which allowed Winthrop to just flank straight out of A. This time, looking to play it more safe and not give up any long-range weapons.
The Vice is so actually good at countering the Yoru right now for Demon because of how tight and constricted the C side is. Compare that to B over on Pearl. It's so wide, it's so simple to get past. There's so many TP options. It's not as easy here for C. And your TP typically is used as a way to get out of sight because it's so fast to rotate. You want to be as versatile as possible. So with that playstyle shift, the Vice is actually working wonderfully. Sentry drone around the corner there with the shorty. Demon sprays down moves, but Infiltrator and Ollie with that tempo each get one apiece till Infiltrator says, I want more of this pie. And it's spiked down off towards Mound. And a player, that one being Ladder Moves, completely known and dusted by Ollie. 4-1 now with Winthrop really elevating this roster to another level, letting Infiltrator off the leash now themselves to fight into the face alongside Moves towards C.
Yeah, Moves finally returning to form. 8-2 so far in this map, and really being the site anchor that we know them to be. Able to hold these sites by themselves and buy so much time to rotate for their team. I like that they're not pushing out anymore unless they get confirmation that the space is clear. No longer being the first to die, even if they are making that first contact. Beautifully done. I expect them to carry this momentum into this the rest of this half.
Then gets a ton of information here with the VTOL and goes in with the shorty, but the team has paid the price for it. 2 for Winthrop, chance for Demon for more. What in the world just happened there? But it's a 3-3 thanks to that frag, and Nami gives them some more headway. Just Ollie and Nasi remaining. Do have a great shot for Nasi. A dink down 1. Fate's low, but You're not able to find it, and thanks to that, Demon can clean up the remainder, and it's all three in the same exact spot. Ollie could maybe put a salvo here. They'll likely just play for some semblance of an exit. They have no other utility in this back pocket, and just use the ultimate as well. And they go for a peek, saw the head, down goes Nami. Fate's already low, doesn't take much more past that. Force them away from that cubby if you can. Timing is right for the util to allow the team to flush back towards defender spawn. They'll go for a height elevation on this swing. Ollie has to beat this perfectly, and there's no chance they're finding anything there. It's Baker College getting their second.
All that from Demon's Dimensional Rift, putting so much pressure onto moves there. I see what Winthrop was trying to do, keep Flare on Mound to see if they can hold off the rest of Baker College on that push, but there was just so much pressure with the shorty in hand, and now they get to double pinch here over on the side of Mound. This also allowed Nami to push off of that Dimensional Rift once moves went down to get deep positioning into B and Waterfall. So this didn't really give Winthrop much of a chance to retake, despite getting the early pick over on A Rubble. The weak side was just a little too weak for them.
Winthrop defensively have shown that they are very strong on being able to get back to a site very quickly, which for this map makes sense. It's very similar to Haven in the sense that you have your defender spawn that can very quickly get to either side. These usually just used as a pivot point, though not as free of access, obviously, with a door separating two sides for the direct access. But it's really about the speed and the difference that Baker College have to work against. Though Flare, trapped inside of Mound, is not able to escape from it. You do still have players actively on site, and the big one is going to be the wombo combo of Infiltrator and Moobs. Though an Operator in hands for Infiltrator here and just a Stinger for Moobs is an interesting choice, but it does give them a kill. Rolling Thunder out, Garden in, Moobs saying, okay, I don't need you to have a gun. I'm just going to take it from your hands and use a Stinger as the salvo's used to create space. But it's Ollie's, of all things, that's being used, which unfortunately stopped Moobs from going in for that kill and punishes their own team. Mistakes like this could be why we have Baker College fight their way in as they get the man advantage.
30 seconds left.
They also allowed Nami to rotate and push deep into A. I do like this flank coming out from moves, but they got to move quick and can't be afraid of any sort of flank watches here, because they want to collapse on all possible angles here on that A site. Infiltrator will get spotted out here in dugout, and they are going to have 3 angles trained on them. They got to play the time and wait. Moves. This is going to get spotted out by the door, and I love this. Just taking care of that flank as soon as they possibly can. Now it's just Infiltrator by themselves. Beautifully done by Baker College.
It's a gorgeous execution. You know you were going to fail on C site. You used their Rolling Thunder to try to get back. They already used their Rose Garden. So you're looking at saying, okay, this is great. I'll trade the 1-for-1 here. I don't need the Rolling Thunder in an opposing round. It's not a win condition ultimate. It's just one that really helps out, especially when we were already in a man disadvantage, right? Trying to maintain that player count. Then you have the ultimate from the shadows. It's hard to find good value for that, especially so on the attack. A lot of teams will just send it towards defender spawn. Try to then play a prowl game. No, use it to strip a player's sightlines back. And Winthrop just had no answer for it. And now, with Baker College 1 round away, Infiltrator wants to go in pretty fast with this overdrive. But Nami shuts down their teammate of Flare and gets the 2 for, well, none, as they get that kill back to Infiltrator and are still standing to tell the tale.
Well, Nashi's gonna find 1 as a consolation, 1 and done, trying to get out of there. We are gonna see the push coming out from Baker to try and punish this, but you don't want to risk giving up another one. Fate cleans it up, and this is gonna leave mound control to Baker. Moob's still here with the Stinger in hand. Not really any utility to save this one out. They may be able to get a pick here. No, Fate so disciplined on the angle, finds a headshot on some moves. All of a sudden it's just Ali left here on rotating door. They hear him, won't be able to find anything with the Sheriff, and now we're gonna see Demon pulling out the hard stuck symbol just for everyone to see.
The series is now tied, and we're seeing Baker College kind of do what we saw them do previously, right? It was a 4-0 start for Winthrop on Pearl. They then proceeded to find 5 in a row, give back 2, and then close out the half, and then get also 5 in a row back again, right? This was kind of how Baker College got such a lead for that eventual 13-7 scoreline on Pearl. Now we're seeing them, it's 3 in a row. Winthrop haven't had a big dog in the last few rounds fight, even with the attempt out of the Rose Garden and Infiltrators now Overdrive. It just feels like Baker College are being clinical. With that headshot off to Flair, who's trying to do the same thing we've seen Flair do multiple times, and they attempted previously against their prior competitor of Harrisburg, the Storm, in their last series yesterday. It's going to get worse. Overdrive comes, sorry, Dimensional Drift comes out, combo that in with an Armageddon, and Demon gets 2 more for the tally in this round. 3 to their name. And the ult pips are already charging after it's just used there. And it's a 5-on-2, and both of these players for Winthrop are so concerned that it's a rotate towards B or C.
I think at this point you also save. Your credits are not looking good. You just had an eco round prior, so you don't want to be put into another situation. And it really seems like Winthrop is not able to adjust in these mid halves. They come off on these strong starts, but unable to carry through. It is instead Baker College that's able to trade out. Nasi will find one, but that's all they'll get. Moves now left with just a Vandal and a Light Shield. Gonna try and take some damage here. They find 1, find 2, and 3 moves. Being a hero right now, but it's not enough. Nami saves them from the inevitable death as they get the pull ahead round.
The thing for Baker College is winning these rounds in a very big affair was the right idea. You want to get the credits stacked. You need to be loaded, because the moment Winthrop win 1 or 2, you're then worried about the eventual save and thrift that have to come afterwards. You can't let that happen. And for Winthrop, committing there is always the right idea in my mind. I think college players are so scared to send the last 1 or 2 and want to save. All that does is force your team into this glass cannon comp where you have a 30% chance, if even that, maybe 10% chance to win a round, which then throws the eco out the window for the next one. If you did decide to turn that 10% to a 35% chance instead and buy up for the remainder of the team to meet and match, just take the loss on the chin, find value where you can, and get some kills. And wow, this moves does that. But they go down at the start of round 10, off with their head, and Baker College now have ease of access into C site with no Vice utility really to contend with.
I like the attempt there on their eco round just to try and sneak up their Demon, however, just being an absolute demon on that Yoru right now. Infiltrator does get a pick with the shotgun from the back, but the weaponry is just not there for the rest of Winthrop, as Flair has a Sheriff in hand, unable to find anything. Demon to take him out, and this is 6 rounds in a row once again for Baker College.
Momentum is Baker's strong suit, it feels like, right? And knowing that there's nothing Winthrop can do to stop it makes their offense that much more demoralizing. I've seen so many teams on Lotus struggle on one side over the other, but right now for Baker College, it doesn't feel like anything, any shortcomings, any slight mistakes are being capitalized on effectively enough from Winthrop to really say this will end 6-6, or we will see Baker College be kind of gate-kept. Ultimates moves is close to the Garden. Maybe they fight for the Old Orb and Mound, but the wise decision would be to hold back. It's a B site push here from Baker, something we haven't really seen from them as a direct approach, and instead has always been either through Link or a single player making control over that space be the most viable option. But the spike there gives you the option always there in the future, but you can use that door either as a bait or a direct access route towards C. As Infiltrator stops Nami from taking a step over. Should have Shrouded stepped there instead, but you gotta say, well, it happens, and you gotta find value elsewhere. And, well, Winthrop want to find their kills, and they're headhunting, and they've gotten now 3 to their Chola.
Huge round for Winthrop to group up here and try to catch these rotations together. Ladder moves now finding themselves in a 1v2, and they get the picks that they need still now in that 1v3, and there's just too many angles, too much map control coming out from the side of Winthrop as they're able to stop the bleeding.
Last round before the switch.
What is Baker going to do there? They're constantly peeking 1v1s, losing out on fights. The players you don't want to peek on 1v1s, right? That being Infiltrator, that being Moves. You can't let these players get isolated gunfights. You can't let them essentially play this battle of attrition against you, because you're going to lose that 9 times out of 10. Doesn't matter how good Nami has been. They're an Omen. They're facing a relay bolt wielding, fast lane setting up, dashing, sliding Infiltrator, who has always been arguably the best gunner on the side of Winthrop on a team that is has some of the best gunners in collegiate. Sometimes you just have to take that on the chin. And I mentioned that yesterday as well. Sometimes some strategies are born knowing you're just better. And it's hard to say that confidently at this level of play in the championship.
You know what they say about your controller top fragging, right? It's if your controller is top fragging, yeah, you're most likely gonna lose the round or lose the map, or if you do win, it's gonna take multiple OTs for that to happen. Right now, somebody else on the side of Baker has got to step it up. They are still leading, but again, Lotus tends to lean a little bit more attack heavy because you're able to utilize those doors in your favor. So I would be pretty concerned if they give up another 6-6 half, especially seeing the composition that Winthrop is going to bring on their attack half.
And Rice balling, even though they're sitting 3-8, that's expected for an offense for Tejo. You're really lagging behind, just being a constant utility dump. This is utility consumption simulator at its finest. Teos are so good about creating space, shutting things down, being this huge threat because there's so much utility in their back pocket. But a lot of this just comes into the fact that's sweet, simple to the point. You're only there to press buttons. Half the time you're not ready to shoot because you're already pressing buttons and you're in those buttons too quickly. That's going to be the case until you move over to defense, where we see Ollie doing a whole lot better. Not Flare, shockingly enough, as we used to seeing here for Winthrop. But in the other way, Shorty out for Demon, and that's a kill to Ollie. No more Teo for Winthrop, and the post plants for them will be a lot more stringent, especially with no Hunter's Fury as well. The Rose Garden is online, and you want to hunt for Moves, but Moves is playing so passive in Waterfall. They're not on site, Jackson. They want to avoid line of sight because their life is the biggest priority for the team.
Demon right now is just a bully with that dimensional rift. We do see the Rolling Thunder online here if they want to try and execute over onto this B site, which seems like they're trying to do. Rose Garden gonna come down as well. Rice Ball able to take down the recon dart, but Nasi is the one getting the kills through the smoke, stuffing the advance. Demon finds themselves in a 1v3, but there's just too many guns chained on his angle. Winthrop University able to tie up the half here to keep a round that was snowballing out of control a little more kept for them.
I think the crazy part for Baker College is you got 38 seconds left by the time the Rose Garden goes out. Rotate to an opposing site. You don't have to commit there on that play. Give it over to an Omen. Shrouded step back away from the danger. The moment that goes out, the bell was rung. The loss was there on the horizon, and it was pretty easy to see why that was going to be the case. Rotate to an opposing site. You had a player all the way over towards long, and you had a Viper too, which I think is like the craziest part. I just never really saw ladder moves with much intent on that half, which is so different in comparison where we saw yesterday Winthrop really be upset by the Viper that was in play for Harrisburg. They were so confident. They were winning big plays. They were vying for map control so heavily on A that there was always the available access to it. Turn that around. Winthrop never had to be too concerned with it, and maybe it's a playstyle shift from yesterday. Maybe it's a teammate diff. Maybe it's a difference of who they're facing in the competition. It's an ult-thrower battle for contention, though, on Mound, and it's going actually in favor for Winthrop's offense as Ollie gets a nice 2-for-1. No, it goes wrong so quickly as Nami just stands strong and gets their kills they were asking for.
Yeah, Rice Ballin finds the rotate coming out from Flare, and I like the fact that they just try to stay alive, keep this within the 2v2. And as he moves, trying to take an aggressive position here, is going to spot out Nami. They need to win this fight, and that they do. Now the bomb has been planted. Rice Balling going to try and sneak over here from stairs. Just going to try and swing out, get spotted, but there's so many angles to check. Moves coming up huge once again in the pistols for Winthrop.
Ability.
And Winthrop, knowing that they have this like major win condition in a lot of these rounds, Jackson, saying we just need a little bit of an edge at the start, whether that's a 1-round lead as you get a 2-1 split or it turns into a 3 or 4 like we saw happen on Haven, knowing that they have this always ever-present threat that these pistols will go their way. We talked a little bit about it as well for the Cumberland series, as well as we talked about a little bit yesterday. I always felt like there was a team winning every pistol, and when you're talking about how close some of these series, some of these maps can be, which I'm expecting this map to turn into in the second half on Lotus with how close the first was, that couple of rounds, that 1 round, that 2 rounds can be enough of a difference maker. We saw a 13-11 the other day on Lotus, right? I mean, it's just the name of the game. Closeness and sometimes brevity. Short-lived past it. Demon escaping away from behind short stack. Now needs to try to get with the rest of the team off towards Tree. You have a Link player, that being Rice Ballin, and they have been spotted now, and they'll try to clear out that recon bolt just as quick as they can. It's 4 players heavy-handed in towards A main, but you got Moves, who's made headway onto C, and the team will rotate to join them there.
Big push out, and Infiltrator will find one as well. So this is the round that you do expect Winthrop to win, as they have the weapons advantage and they have such deep positioning coming out here. Infiltrator finding yet another one. The plant's gonna go down. We're gonna see what the call is gonna come from the last 2 players remaining here on Baker. They try to find the pick, but it's nothing. A flawless round is gonna come out from Winthrop.
They keep every weapon they had, and knowing that Moves held back like Nasi had done previously, right, and never chose to really buy up heavily, means that he can buy up for this third and maintain all the weapons they had previously. And on offense, where they can kind of control the tempo and they only really have to worry about what the Sentinels in play for Baker are working with, knowing that they don't really have a standard Sentinel and they're relying on that Viper to be that instead, the job is that much easier for Winthrop to move in fast, to take that speed. I've seen some crazy overall agent selections for this map. I've seen 3 Sentinels work like really well against ridiculously good teams, shockingly. And I've also seen no Sentinels work very well and be standard. But it doesn't mean that they don't have their problems with that. And the problem is going to be, how can you hold down a site super effectively when it comes to the stall game? It has to be so reliant on the smoke play from Nami and the toxic screen out from ladder moves. But that's also why you have something like a sentry drone and more. As Rice Ballin is rushed through, they let that happen. You knew Infiltrator. You had a teammate wrapping around. They get that kill, and they even get one more for their trouble. It's a B site for free. Bar now just that Yoru of Demon who wants to come from Waterfall and be gate kept by that Omen I was talking about before.
Oh, man. And if I'm Ali, no, not Ali, sorry. If I'm Rice Balling, I'm pretty upset. Getting shot from behind there, nobody really watching main, but it's not really ladder moves' fault. It's not like they gave up the angle. It was beautiful util usage coming out from moves to try and block that angle. Here we see now another bonus coming out from the side of Winthrop, and this is going from bad to really bad for Baker.
They have so much momentum behind them, right? And the neon, the speed, the ability to be basically everywhere. Moves is prowling around like you'd expect them to. Tayfon, one of my favorite players on Cumberland, and the only reason I like him as much as I do is because of their vice on this map, and this map entirely. That's all they do. They let them off the leash and they go kill. I'm seeing that right now from Moves. And after harping on Moves so much, Moves is now sitting at the top of my favorite list for Winthrop's team, behind maybe Nasi. I've seen Nasi for 3 years now, so there's a little bit of bias on that side. But Moves has been so good on this vice, as you'd expect them to be, that it can change entire compositions. It can force teams to have to change their agent selection the next time they ever even think of playing this map, knowing how good a player was with that agent and how much it just tore them apart. Some coaches can go, okay, that's good, but we can counter it with this. I don't know. I don't think there's a great counter for just how good Moves has been. You have to target them specifically, and Moves is never just sitting the exact same spot every single time on offense. They are moving around like an ever-present threat as Winthrop will get this plant down on the C site.
Yeah, just taking up so much space, also causing so much anxiety for the defense, never knowing where moves may be lurking. And all of that, this allows Winthrop to get a free plant here over on the C site, and this is going to be an eco retake coming out from the side of Baker. We see the flanks coming through, but Moves is already on top of it, has lost a ton of HP, will get flashed out. Luckily, Ali is there to trade out, but the numbers, the trades, they're going all in favor of Baker right now, as Infiltrator will find a pick through the wall. And the time is just not on Baker's favor. If Infiltrator can get this, they do. They are going to win the round despite all the numbers, all the trades going in favor of Baker College. And I think that's honestly a very serendipitous moment there for Winthrop.
Double digits as well for them, which makes matters even worse for Baker College, letting them now get 6 in a row and losing that last round like that, where they're in an eco and they make this major brawl, this huge fight. Winthrop, I'm going to say it, they screwed up, they messed up. Why are they fighting so heavy-handed outside of Mountain in C lobby of all things? but it buys enough time, and you're saved by that speed of Infiltrator. The wall bang through short wall from all the way on Waterfall. The fast lane to separate double sightlines. No one covering that for Baker, even though you know where the player is. That is just a major problem, and we've talked a lot how so many little things can be the undoing at this level. One mistake in a round can end your championship run, and we're seeing multiple from Baker and the occasional big one as well from Winthrop. But this round starts to right there for Winthrop. And as they did move Nasi off towards C, ladder moves gets that kill to even that man count up. But it's an A site take here for Winthrop. As one player's in tree, and I think Nami's waiting for the chance. Does Moob know this? They won't get some damage. It's the two! Make it more! No, Ollie couldn't get that one. Leave it lying. As their teammates fall to the wayside, and Ollie has to clutch up against this Viper, knows their upper side ropes, and has to kind of wait. Drone in hand, doesn't spot the head, finally can, tries to go for the suppress, salvo to force them down, tries to stall, no, and Armageddon, force them in, it's a headshot for Ollie. 3 in the round, and it's 11 for Winthrop. My goodness, they're eating up good.
Oh man, and it just looks like this Viper pick has not gotten any value for Baker at this point. In fact, it's been detrimental to them. We've mentioned it so many times that they have to play the Sentinel role, but you can't really do that against a composition like Neon and Sova and Tejo that just gives you so much information and so much stun. Baker gonna have to take the time out here. They were so close to winning that round off the heroics of Nami, but in the end, it's Ali that clutches out. 11 on the board, and I believe it's going to be another broken buy right now. So here's the question, Scott. Do you try to force up here and maybe get a momentum shift, or do you just save for match point where you'll be down 12-6?
I think you have to commit to this. I think you're at the state where you've not gotten a single round in this half. Preying on some sort of a difference maker is not going to happen. Use the Dimensional Drift, use that Rolling Thunder, take the fight to them early with some sort of semi-buy, and try to get those weapons out of Winthrop's hands and fight them on your terms. Because right now, Moobs and Infiltrator are just playing on a different level than you. It has to be solved. Moobs is 24-9, for goodness sake. This is not a ping difference. They don't just have exit lag to try to eliminate any connection problems and ensure they have a better and faster connection route to their game servers. They are just better. They are going to be there. This is not just taking your connection to the next level like you would with exit. Like, this is just taking the team to a completely new level. And very well, if they played like this, would have just won upper game yesterday. Where was this Winthrop? Maybe jet lagged. I don't know. But this Baker College roster has no answers to it. I have to see something different in this round, and they've gone for the force, but they've already lost 2 to Moves. Who else then moves on Winthrop? And they could have had a third, but Nami does shut that down with the Guardian, but it's too little too late. Winthrop are on A and planting.
Yeah, the damage is done now. They get the numbers advantage and they get the plant down. And again, this is a bit of a broken buy, even though they tried to force up. They tried to make the play here. Rolling Thunder is in hand. But I think at this point, it seems like Baker may just try to invest that Rolling Thunder here. I think they should. It's a good idea, especially if they get this pick. No, they don't. The Rolling Thunder is going to come a little late. They're able to find one pick. If they can get a number here to even it up, yes, they do. But Flare there to trade out. So 1v2 situation here. About half of the time has been spent for the defuse. They're going to get the tap here, but they have no information. A dry swing from Fate is going to get the pick. The door has been opened, but Nasi there to clutch it out. Match point for Winthrop.
Match and series point for Winthrop to move on in our lower side of our bracket. This championship series with a chance to contend all the way through. Make your way to Raleigh on June 1st. You'll likely be there a day or two early, but still, point stands to make it to that LAN. Not have any connection problems because you'll be on the same server, but to more so be able to face your competitor in person, try to get in their head a little bit maybe, celebrate with the team, and have all the accomplishments, all the trials that you've gone through to that point. This one is a big one, obviously, for both sides, though Winthrop are making quick work, it feels like, on Lotus, and I brought the question forward. was their problems on Lotus yesterday made up for like they were in comparison for Haven? And the answer has obviously been sung yes, as Ollie gets 2 with the Outlaw. Not even chancing a reload and falling back, just nailing what they had to, knowing there would be no armor to their name, as Infiltrator seemingly puts a big nail into the coffin of this Baker College roster. 13-6, is this our final score? Ladder Moves has to pull off a miracle. It's 4 in front of them, pistol out, Moves rushing them, and it's over. Winthrop take it, 13-6, the final tally.
Coming up huge when it mattered the most. Winthrop avoiding elimination. Moves coming up huge. Finally returning to form there. I really want to see what their final stat line is, because that was a clinic of a match. But I just want to point out right there on that final round, we saw a setup come out from Baker College. They tried to be aggressive on Mound, but again, they just did not have that space closer that they needed. They got 3 stunned right off of the fall line, but Yoru was just not able to capitalize off of those, wasn't able to support or slide in, and they just became easy pickings for Ali on that Outlaw. And it just hurts so much, because I understand wanting to play your comfort pick, but it gets to a point where it just becomes so difficult, especially with tournament life on the line, for you to pick a composition that it doesn't have the firepower or the utility or the cohesion to come against a team like Winthrop.
And we talked about it a little bit in Baker's previous series we had. It felt like if a team is able to key in, and I won't mention the team that did it, right? But if a team is able to key in that this is a Yoru one trick, and Demon is going to play Yoru and is really good at Yoru, really good at Yoru. But there's just a time and a place for when Yoru's really good, and Lotus sometimes just doesn't feel like that's it. And I feel like I've had to mention that now twice, which is 1 time too many and probably 2 times too many if you're already in this far into the championship, right? This is just it's going to be what it is, and they have to bow out at this point now for the lower side. But man, oh man, did they make a great run. Baker College is very impressive, and I'm sure they are still satisfied with how far they got. I know Converse was satisfied. They got knocked out in lower round 2. They were like, we did better than last year. They were happy with it. I'm sure Baker College is looking the same way, but the further you get, Jackson, it almost is like, it's almost bad for you, because the further you get, the closer you got to the chance into the grand finals, the closer you were, and the more the expectation arises. But with that expectation, the playing has to arise to the occasion, and Winthrop, after a tumultuous loss yesterday, not really what they wanted to see, upset, made sure they were not upset tonight.
Pulling out exactly what they needed when it mattered the most. Boobs comes up huge. I believe they dropped almost 30 right there on that map, and what a huge way to end it. I've loved seeing Winthrop finally getting back to where they're supposed to be. They played together. There was a lot of individual plays, right? A lot of individual highlights from all the players on Winthrop, but this map, it really felt like they were setting each other up. I don't think they took like solo fights unless they were pushed to do so, and somehow still came up on top. So well done coming out from the side of Winthrop. As we look at the stat line put out by Boost, 350 ACS, 28 kills, and only 10 deaths. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, again, I hate to mention it, J-Fon. I won't mention the team. J-Fon has changed how I view Vices for this map. And Noobs has just fell into that role and created this perfect image of exactly what I want to see. How collegiate players need to play Vice on this map for their defense, and especially so for their offense. 28 and 10, unreal pressure, a constant ever-moving threat. They are literally flowing like a viper's pit as it starts to expound into its ult use. Their moves is doing that, just moving across the map as a lonesome player being trusted by their team. And even though we said it feels like the Yoru wasn't a huge deal maker for Baker College, they still went 14 and 15 with a 226 ACS. They were good, but it felt like it wasn't able to allow ladder moves or Rice Ballin the leeway needed to go crazy. Rice Ballin struggling on the Teo even more so in that second half. We knew it would happen the first, but you wanted to see more of them in the second, and it just didn't come true. Your Viper, we need to see a lot from on the offense. That was your Vice competitor, right? They are your difference maker, your lone wanderer. They couldn't wander anywhere. They wandered straight to the afterlife. That's the issue here. And we'll take a look at how our brackets are kind of breaking out overall and maybe how this is all panned out, but This is a crazy side. We had Winthrop lose yesterday in uppers and almost lose today in lowers, but they pulled through. It was a really good series. But we do know the result of tonight. It's a Winthrop win in a 2-1 fashion, 13-6, 13-7, 13-6, the 36 again. Looks bad, but it never felt like it was really bad until it got that way right at the end of the start of the second half. 6-6 halves every single time here, Jackson, throughout all 3 maps.
Yeah, and it always seemed like the first team that got momentum in the second half just carried through the entire way. Happened with Winthrop on the first map, I believe was Pearl, and then it happened to Baker. They just couldn't get a footing, or couldn't get a hold on that second half. So truly well done by both teams. The scoreline looks crazy, but best believe the first half of every single match was extremely close, guys.